The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Zack Sabre Jr., New Japan Cup winner 2018. And you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style with my mates. Enjoy.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy, Donovan, and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll be covering all the latest news, answering your questions, and reviewing My Dad is a Heel Wrestler. You can support our show by subscribing to the Social Suplex Podcast Network or to Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. And if you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And this week's episode is brought to you by NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPW World.com with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. Visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I am doing as good as I could possibly be doing under the circumstances.
Yeah, man, same here. Still quarantine, still social distancing. So just another week of the same old.
Yeah. It's a crazy time to be alive.
It is, man. So before we jump into the news, we have the results from the NJPW versus AEW fantasy booking contest. The poll was put out on the Social Suplex Twitter at Social Suplex last week for all of our listeners and fans to vote on, and we have the official results of the poll. So, and this was between myself, Josh, Floyd, and Amy from All Things Elite. So we had a tie for third place with 18% of the votes. Both had 18%. Myself and Floyd tied at 18% of the votes, coming in third, tied for third there. Then in second, we had the young boy, 19% of the vote. And then in first place, with 45% of the vote, Amy O, Miss Phoenix AEW herself, cleaning house, wiping us out.
How many votes were there?
There was 154 votes.
So she got 69 votes. You said 145?
154.
154. And I got 30. So she beat me by 39?
Yeah.
All right. I just want to say this. Amy's got like 10,000 Twitter followers, and I got 0 Twitter followers. So I think we need to grade this on a curve here, given the fact that I have no following whatsoever. That mine was graded and voted for just on the purity of the quality of my card alone, and everyone knows Amy, has loyal diehard fans, which I don't. As evidenced by the fact that she's got 10,000 more followers than I do. So I think that we need to grade this and bump me up a little bit here. So I call myself the winner of this thing.
Oh man.
No, I'm just playing. No, yeah. Good job to Amy.
Yeah, we all four had very good cards, a lot of interesting matchups. You could tell like what matches were really good. Some matches were featured on all four cards, and so yeah, really fun exercise to do, and yeah, it's interesting. Shout out to our sister at All Things Elite.
I think your downfall is just the fact that the top of our cards end up being so similar, but the bottom of the cards, mine just ended up being that much more superior, and so that was your undoing.
Yeah. It's
not. You're not gonna dispute that. You're just gonna agree with it.
Maybe I'm just not as good as Booker as I thought I was.
I mean, you are the same person who booked a ladder match where someone who was not involved in the match ran in and ascended and grabbed the belt and became champion.
Hey, man, that was 2009. That was cutting edge. That was innovative. That finish ain't never been done before. We popped the territory with that finish. We got mad heat on Xavier Kane for stepping in there and stealing the title.
So when you did it was cutting edge, but when WWE did it with Brock Lesnar at Money in the Bank, it was bullshit, right?
Yes.
Oh man!
My God.
But yeah, I wanted to win the AEW New Japan contest. I don't like losing, and I lost, so that kind of sucks.
I think both of our downfalls, like we talked about when we booked these things, we kind of booked it like it was the beginning of a series, and like we had great cards, but obviously there was other dream. We could have just threw out like 10 singles dream matches.
Yeah, if I want to just throw out like Kenny and whoever, I could have done that. I guess whatever, it's fine. I'm not too salty. Everyone that voted for me, thank you. Everyone that didn't, you're dead to me.
Oh my gosh.
No, yeah, it was fun though.
Yeah, and so be on the lookout. We are planning on doing some more kind of interactive voting stuff in the future, so be on the lookout for that. Make sure you follow the @SocialSuplex account and all of our Twitter accounts to be active and get involved in those polls.
Definitely.
All right, so we got some news here. Then we'll get into the questions, and then we'll be reviewing My Dad is a Heel Wrestler, and we're going to be joined by Rich Latta for that segment of the show to review that movie. So starting off with the news here. So came out last week that New Japan canceled 5 more dates, house shows from April 12th to April 18th. At this point, the first event back on the schedule is April 19th at Corkin Hall. But clearly there's no talent or card announced for that because, right now they're still kind of playing it week by week and not really hopeful for cards to continue in April.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen there? I'm not surprised that they've continued to cancel these events as the prevailing circumstances are ongoing. But you never know. There might be a chance with things seeming to improve over on that side of the world. Maybe they do run a Corkin Hall show on the 19th. There's a lot of other, companies that are running shows. And that's not me saying they should or shouldn't do it. I don't know, but there is a chance it might happen.
Yeah. And then we have a note here for foreign talent. The Japanese government announced on April 2nd that any foreigner who leaves Japan starting on April 3rd will not be able to return anytime soon. So, luckily a lot of the Gaijin talent for New Japan are already out of the country. So none of them would get stuck there if they didn't live there. But I don't know how easy it's going to be for them to get into the country, though.
I can tell you this much. I would be happy to be stuck in Japan.
You can't really complain about that. Well, I guess there's not really much to do if you're stuck inside, though. But, that happened to Dragon Gate commentator Larry Dallas, who does the English commentary. He got stuck there in Japan because he wanted to stay there and do the commentary.
I'd Uber Eats.
Uber Eats from Yano's restaurant.
Yeah, be chilling.
And then also in more news here, the Wrestle Dynasty ticket sales were postponed. The pre-sale registration has been extended. So May 13th will be the new pre-sale date. So if you sign up for that pre-sale registration, you can get the pre-sale code to allow you to buy tickets on May 13th. And then on sale to the general public will be May 15th. And we talked
2 days before my birthday.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week that, we made a plea like they really need to push these pre-sale and on-sale dates. It was supposed to be this week, and clearly, people in the office, they're listening to Keeping It Strong Style every week and took our advice to heart.
Jeremy, there's moments when it comes to, our audio podcasting career where you just feel proud, and this is one of those moments. I just like to know that we're making a difference out there. And as you mentioned, it's very evident that someone from the office was definitely listening. They were like, oh, the Kiss boy said we need to postpone it. Harold, we're pushing this thing back. And, hats off to them. So that's great.
And we did have a question here from William Johnson in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. He said, how optimistic are you two about Wrestle Dynasty taking place? If it does continue as scheduled, how do you anticipate ticket sales might go?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty optimistic it's happening personally. That doesn't mean that it's for certain, but I mean, when is that supposed to be? August
22nd.
Okay. So it's April now, May, June, July, August, so we got 4 months. I just have to hope and pray that this doesn't continue on for another 4 months at this point. I hope, the states get their acts together. The president gets his act together. Everyone who, the citizens who are not listening and still going out and stuff, whatever. But I just hope that everyone pulls together and, we can kind of beat this thing so that I can go to the Garden and watch New Japan.
Yeah, that's going to be a couple days after my birthday, and so I definitely want to spend my birthday week in New York and be able to go to that MSG show. So, yeah, I'm going to be praying that the thing kind of gets cleared up here and we kind of get back to some kind of normal and we're free to travel to New York that summer. And so it'd be a fun time to get together with listeners and, watch New Japan.
As far as what was the rest of the question? Was it just simply how optimistic are we?
You said, well, how do you anticipate ticket sales might go?
Oh yeah, I knew there was something else. So as far as that's concerned, that's really hard to kind of gauge because obviously when you do a show like this, you're hoping and praying for, some forward momentum, some buzz, that sort of thing. And right now, with them not running any shows or even really having much, I mean, it's already a niche product in the States. And then, for them to have no TV, no shows running on the app, hopefully by the time Wrestle Dynasty comes around, maybe the story will be flipped. But right now it feels like, the diehards who love New Japan are thirsting for it, but other people who maybe were peripheral or who weren't so much fans at all, maybe like casuals, I don't hear very much buzz about this. So I don't know. I don't know if that would translate to good ticket sales by the time if this thing goes on for a while longer and there's not a good build-up or lead into the show. I don't know. On the other hand, there will be an appetite from consumers once things kind of are lifted for live entertainment, especially sports entertainment. And, maybe it would work in their advantage, but at the same time, it goes back to the things we say it every time when it comes to New Japan running in the States: marketing, advertising, awareness, visibility, the card being announced. There's a lot of things that would need to happen there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll see some good ticket sales. I'm not sure if it's going to sell out right away. You do have people who have lost their jobs, people who are being furloughed, who might not have the income they might want to buy tickets, but they might not be able to financially afford to buy tickets at that moment. But then again, you do have, people who had money planned going WrestleMania weekend, and that got canceled. So there are people who have money from that trip. People who would go to Double or Nothing. That's still up in the air whether Double or Nothing is going to happen or not. So hypothetically, if that show ends up getting canceled, that's another big travel show that people would have funds for, and people could save those funds and be like, hey, I really want to go for a wrestling show, even if I'm not a diehard New Japan fan. Like, I have all this travel money from 2 trips. Like, I want to go check out, Madison Square Garden. I want to check out this Wrestle Dynasty.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, but at the same time, there's not that tie-in that they had in the past with WrestleMania weekend. Like, we're already here. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is people who have to kind of go out of their way for it. And you brought up a lot. I feel like there's a lot of things working against it. All those financial issues you brought up, all the marketing issues I kind of brought up, who's to say that those fans who have those extra funds, who might have gone to WrestleMania or, AEW, even know about this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Maybe they, like, you might be correct in saying that, like, they have extra money. These other big shows aren't happening. They would probably pay out for this, but they got to know about it for them to even to consider to do that. And it seems to me in a lot of cases, people don't even know about it.
Right. Yeah. Once you kind of get into the quote unquote kind of casual wrestling fan, there's not a lot of talk or buzz about this show right now. So,
but if they run the right card with the right star power and the right appeal, then that kind of changes things, because then the awareness is lifted a lot higher. Here in the States, I don't think New Japan as a brand itself is what draws people. I think it's the stars, as opposed to like in maybe say domestically. Of course, there's a lot of star power, but the brand itself, they could pretty much run, they could run a lower C-level show and still have a good turnout at a Cork and Hall. They can't. They've already evidenced that they can't turn around and do the same thing in the States anymore. They've
Right.
tried that with this last tour, and that doesn't work. They need the stars. They need something that is appealing to the average fan. So yeah.
So time will tell. We'll see what happens in a month or so from now, when tickets go on sale. Free now on NJPW World. New Beginning in Miami and New Beginning in Raleigh are now free to watch. Ring of Honor has put up the G1 Supercard from Madison Square Garden last year up for free on their YouTube channel.
They also put up the last couple Supercard of Honor shows, including the one from New Orleans that featured quite a bit of a New Japan presence on that show as well.
Yeah, Ishii, Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi all featured on that New Orleans card.
Tanahashi.
Yeah.
Lots of guys.
There's a Zack Sabre Jr. Part 1 interview up on NJPW1972.com. We got the Token Shop Globals coming April 10th. This is going to be a new store that will be dedicated to serving international customers both in the USA and worldwide. Simple and easy to use, top quality New Japan merchandise is now easier than ever to get your hands on. And they're going to be celebrating the launch of the new store. They'll be giving away a free button badge to every customer who spends $50 or more at the online store, and customers who spend $100 will get both a button badge and a free bumper sticker. So essentially, for U.S. fans and international, we're getting pretty much our own access to the New Japan shop.
Yeah, which I love that, because, it's great that we've got ProWrestlingTees.com and everything like that, but to be honest, there's a difference between the authentic New Japan merchandise and then, the printed stuff that you get from Pro Wrestling Tees, which was very evident to me when I got my Line Mark shirt, and then I realized that there was a Champions logo on the freaking arm, and I was like, God. And I hate that so much. So, it's going to be cool. I hope the prices aren't too crazy, because that's one thing I've noticed. There's a big markup on the New Japan merchandise at a lot of the live shows we've attended where they have the authentic stuff. And so that kind of stinks. The other thing too is the sizing. So I hope, like, with them doing a US shop, obviously sizes run larger in the States than they do over in Asia. And I've noticed myself getting my hands on like large or even XL sometimes are like too small.
Yeah, it's a tight squeeze.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they like kind of account for that. Not saying that they have to cater to us, but if it's going to be a US shop, maybe have like a chart that kind of explains the sizes so people don't end up buying the wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Then last thing I have here in the news, Rocky Romero was on the NJPW official English podcast last week. And this week, Big Scott Norton was on the NJPW official English podcast. So check both those interviews out.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance. I listened to the Rocky Row podcast. Obviously, he's always great to have on. I started listening to Scott Norton. I didn't get through that one completely yet, but it's on the docket for tomorrow, honestly. And yeah, I mean, Scott Norton, one of my favorite big guys of the past.
Yeah, and we did get a chance to meet Scott when we were at Dallas for G1 in Dallas there, and chatted him up a little bit. Also, we got the drop from him. We got his number to potentially do an interview down the line. So,
yeah, we should. With what's going on now, it wouldn't be a bad idea that we call him too.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of guys like that over the years that like we have their contact info, like they've agreed to come on, and then like something crazy happens, we end up not being able to do the interview or whatever.
Well, a lot of times too, it's not always like New Japan based. So like for us, it's hard to do because especially during a normal time, we have so much to cover, preview, and review. So it's hard for us to kind of get extra interviews in.
Yeah, but I mean, I would love. The funny thing is like we met with Scott, back in July. Like like you said, we have the drop and everything like that. And at the time, he was doing the or the press for his book, and we were supposed to have him come on and everything like that, and then we never got around to it. Now Chris Charlton did it, and like we could really use that interview now.
Yeah, man, looks like we're kind of like copying.
And it's like, dang it, he was on the New Japan World or the New Japan English podcast, but like I would still love to have him on. So
yeah, and I listened to it, and I think we can go a little bit of a different spin than what Chris said. I think we can add a couple different stuff. So maybe I'll reach out to Scott this week, and maybe we can get something lined up here.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. And I'm still working on reaching out to other English-speaking wrestlers, so we might have some more interviews coming up down the line here to help us fill out the show.
Jeremy, call in the favors.
Now, moving on to questions. So first question comes from Reddit user Hawaiian Punch BV. You guys touched on the topic last week and talked about the ideas that New Japan could do for Best of Super Juniors. One of you mentioned that they could do all domestic talent tournament. Politics aside, who would you choose to fill up both blocks? Talent from All Japan, DDT, Dragon Gate, W1, etc. are available. Fantasy booking caps on. There would be maybe 10 Japanese juniors from last year's Best of Super Junior, minus Shingo, Narita, and Taka, adding Hiromu and Desperado, so 6 spots open. All right, so Josh, I know that you have come up with your list of people who you would put in the Best of Super Juniors, and I have also come up with a list. My New Japan side is pretty much the same as yours, but I have found some different Japanese talent from your list, so we can just have a little bit of variance here.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you did that, actually. So normally when we come on this show, I don't actually like prep anything. But I was running through the questions, and like once I saw this question, I was like, oh man, they did it. They're forcing us to actually like put in some actual work. Because this is a great question, but let me be clear here, listeners. Number one, I was the one who had mentioned maybe doing an all-domestic tournament down the line. Number two, and I think Jeremy would probably agree with me in this, I don't watch other Japanese wrestling promotions.
Same here.
I will. Now, sometimes it might seem like I do if I mention some of the bigger names from like Dragon Gate or All Japan or Noah. But I'm pretty much what you'd call classic cherry picker at this point with how much New Japan we have to cover and everything like that and all the other different things going on in my life. I don't actually watch in depth like the full cards of these companies. So when it comes to the junior divisions, I'm not really that knowledgeable on the junior wrestling. So this was quite a task. So I say all that to say this. This is a disclaimer. This is not a Puro expert giving you this awesome Best of Super Juniors potential card. This is a novice who happens to know a lot about New Japan Pro Wrestling and old Puro, but not so much modern Puro. Like I could tell you a handful of matches I've maybe seen from the guys that are going to be on my list.
Right, and I'm the exact same. I hear a hot match that happens, I find a way to check it out, and I watch that. I don't watch full cards of any other Japanese promotion besides New Japan. Well, except Stardom would be the only other, and that's Joshi, the only other Japanese promotion.
You like Gato move too.
Honestly, I have not even watched a whole Gato move match.
I know. I just love saying that you like it. I actually thought about throwing Antonio Honda on this.
So did I. I checked his weight. He's like, oh, he's right on the limit. Maybe I'll put him in.
He's on the limit.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I'll put him in there.
And also, shout out to the different sources I kind of referenced. Most of my familiarity comes from things like Eastern Lariat Radio, Voices of Wrestling, Open the Voice Gate. What's the other pro show that they have?
Wrestling Omakase.
Yeah, Wrestling Omakase. A lot of those guys, even Pacific Rim podcast. Those are some of the different things that made me familiar here. And then I kind of just utilized like Cage Match. The Voices of Wrestling Match of the Year list was a really good resource, and then just Wikipedia. So with that being said, without further ado, here's my list. So I kind of assumed in the past few years we've done a 16-man tournament. Last year they did a 20-man tournament. So that would be, again, 20, 10 guys in each block. I kind of talked to you about this, Jeremy, and you said that based on the dates, it looked like they'd probably be running another 20-man block, correct?
Correct.
So with that being the case, we figured that there'd be about 10 domestic talent that we knew for sure would be in this tournament. So for New Japan, it'd be Sho, Yo, Tiger Mask 4, Taguchi, Bushi, Hiromu, Ishimori, Desperado, Doki, and then Yumura. And then aside, I guess there's some other people you could hypothetically throw in there or change, but those are the staple domestic guys from New Japan. I thought about Robbie Eagles because he's kind of close, New Zealand and everything, but I don't know with the travel ordinances if he'd even be able to get in for this,
Right.
So with that being the case, what I wanted to do here was kind of just grab one or two guys from most of the big companies. Some companies literally only have like one viable junior that's like marketable, that's a good person. Some companies have like for instance DDT and Dragon Gate specifically just have a plethora, like so many guys. So the guys I end up going with is from Just Tap Out, the founder of that company, New Japan alumni. He was in this tournament last year, so it seems like an easy fit. Taka Michinoku. After that, I grabbed a guy from Dragon Gate, and there's quite a few Dragon Gate guys that you could have gone with. I've gone with two. The first one is Ben K, who I have seen some matches of, and I really like his work, and I think he'd be awesome in this tournament. After that, I went with Yuma Aoyagi, from All Japan. I believe he's pretty much kind of like the ace of their junior division at this point, from what I can tell, but again, not too knowledgeable. After that, I went to I grabbed a freelancer. Right now, he's spending most of his time in Freedoms and Big Japan Pro Wrestling in Masashi Takeda. Big name, very well known, deathmatch guy, also former MMA fighter, so he can brawl with the best of them. He can also do the strong style shoot fights. I saw him and Jonathan Gresham last year at Bloodsport, which was just freaking awesome. A guy like him with scars all over his body from light 2 matches, you wouldn't think is a great technical wrestler, but he is. After that, I went to DDT and I grabbed one of their best junior guys. So I took Tetsuya Endo. From Noah, I grabbed Daisuke Harada, who I think is, again, probably like their top junior guy in Noah. I went all the way to the minor leagues in Michinoku Pro and grabbed someone I've always liked, High Flyer Fujita Hayato from DDT. Pretty much the consensus top talent in the company right now, Konosuke Takashita. And then from Big Japan, I grabbed Takuya Nomura, who is a junior but also spends most of his time in their strong division. So from Big Japan, I grabbed a guy from the strong division and from the deathmatch division, which is pretty cool. And then finally from Dragon Gate, I grabbed Pro legend Masaki Mochizuki, which should round it out to. Now here's the only thing. I don't think that a tournament like this could ever happen in New Japan, because I've literally grabbed what I consider to pretty much be aces and top, high-flying talent from all over Japan who I I don't know. The politics here would just be, fucking insane. But
right.
you look at that list of names, and I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, man, it's pretty tight list right there. All right, so for my list, for all the New Japan guys, I had pretty much everybody you had. I did add in Kanemaru, who was in the tournament last year.
Did I forget Kanemaru?
Yeah.
I don't know how I did that, to be honest with you.
And then I did add in somebody who is not in the junior division, but he weighs in as a junior.
Oh, you threw in Kenta?
I did.
I thought about doing that.
And just, he said put your fantasy booking cap on, so that's what I did. So, Kenta is, regarded as one of the, best junior wrestlers in Japan, and a junior that crossed over to heavyweight division. But one thing Kenta's never done is won a best of the super juniors, and he wants to add that on the resume before he retires. So he's going to enter this year's tournament and fill out the field. And I would do a storyline very similar to last year, where he's in a Shingo role where he just destroys his block and goes to the finals against somebody who they're trying to push, maybe Sho or maybe Hiromu, and you kind of have a big final match here of Kenta versus whoever you want to go over there.
I like that Kenta Hiromu matchup. One other thing too is if you wanted to go that route, you could do this with Zack Sabre. You could do this with Ishii, believe it or not. You could do it with, like you said, Kenta, or even Shingo. You could throw Shingo back in there. So I mean, there are some heavyweight guys that they could bring back if it got dire, enough that they needed to.
Right. All right, now for the guys that I'll be bringing in outside of New Japan. So my first two.
I know one for sure, that at least two that I think you're for sure bringing in.
Okay. So my first two guys come from Dragon Gate. So first I'm going to bring in KZ.
That's a good pick.
So
I thought about bringing him in.
I saw him have a match of Pac last year. Open the Dream Gate championship title match. And
yeah.
I thought he was pretty good. I was pretty impressed by that matchup there. That's one of the Dragon Gate matches I did watch last year. So I'd bring KZ in. Then I would bring in the current champ, Naruki Doi, who just
I love Naruki Doi.
Just recently won the belt, so I'd bring him in.
Yeah, those are two really, really good choices. I thought about bringing in Doi, but I was like, if you bring him in, he's the champion.
Right. Yeah, it'd be kind of, you can't lose too much.
And that's the thing. Dragon Gate, there's literally like 10 other guys you could bring in that are all at the weight limit. They're all just fantastic.
Right. The next up from Noah, I would bring in the junior tag team champions, Atsushi Kogote and Kotaro Suzuki. Bring them in to kind of fill out the card there.
Okay.
And then I'm going to bring in a freelancer who spends a lot of time in Noah. I've seen him compete in MLW, Minoru Tanaka.
Yeah, actually, I didn't think you were going to bring in Heat, but that's cool. Minoru Tanaka, former IWGP junior champion, like that's pretty dope.
Yeah,
I thought about him too, actually.
I know you liked him a lot because when I saw the match, you kind of like popped when he came out.
Yeah, I love Minoru Tanaka.
Then next, I would bring in from 2AW, Ayato Yoshida.
I thought about that, but I was like, he wrestles as like a heavyweight primarily, but weight-wise, he's on the limit.
Right, and has a little bit of a history there in New Japan when he was there for a little bit. So bring him back. He's a little bit more experienced now. He's a little bit more seasoned. Let's see what he's got.
That's good.
Now, my last two picks could be considered cheating. But as of yesterday, both of these gentlemen were in Japan and worked a DDT show.
Oh my God.
So my two picks from DDT, I would bring in Chris Brooks and Speedball Mike Bailey.
Those would be two really, really great guys to bring in for this.
Yeah, seen both of those guys work before. Pretty good workers. Speedball Mike Bailey was a guy who was tearing up the U.S. indie scene, but then got in some, I can't remember if it was legal trouble or something with his passport or his paperwork or whatever, and had to be out of the country for X amount of time. So he's mainly been wrestling in Canada, his home country, in Japan. So whenever this guy can get back in the States, that would be great. But yeah, Speedball Mike Bailey is a great worker, and so is Chris Brooks. I think they would kind of fill out the tournament great here.
Now, here's some names that I thought you would list that you didn't list that are freelancers that are out there. I kind of get why you didn't, though, but I'm a little surprised you didn't go with Tajiri.
I did think about Tajiri, though.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Ultimo Dragon.
I thought about him, too.
And I'm surprised you didn't do any Strong Hearts at all. No Shima, no T-Hawk.
Well, I don't know where those guys are right now.
I assume they're in Japan.
Because they were doing like MLW tapings, and I don't know if they got back to Japan or got stuck here in the States. So
I think the thing, though, is if you're domestic, you can come back to your home country in most cases.
Gotcha.
So I think they would have been fine. But yeah, I was surprised you didn't go with any of them because those are all guys I know you're a lot more familiar with. So
yeah,
I like your list. Your list is pretty varied, actually.
And plus, since Strong Hearts are AEW, AEW ain't.
I thought about that. I also thought about going with Shotaro Ashino, the guy from Wrestle One. He's kind of like their big star ace, who actually just signed with All Japan. Spoiler alert. But I know he doesn't even wrestle really as a junior, but he's on that limit. And I was like, that might be cool. Bring him in. But yeah, those are our lists.
Boom. And this last part of his question says, also, was my dad as a heel wrestler robbed of an Oscar nomination?
Well, you'll have to listen to our review to to get the full review on that. But that's coming up here later in the show. But I love the movie.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, we'll review that pretty soon here. Next question here from Reddit user Grunty Dodds. He says, what are some of the best, bloodiest matches on World that you can recommend?
Okay, awesome. So this is a great question, Grunty Dodds, and two questions that really made us work back to back, which I like. Which most of the time we're just shooting off rip, like literally. So I went ahead and just grabbed 10 matches that I know exist out there that are New Japan matches. I know most of them are on the network on World. I don't know if all of them are, but I'll just kind of go through them real quick, and I'll give you guys the dates. So if you are listening, you might want to like take note. These are all pretty good matches or really great matches that are really bloody. So you might want to put pause, grab your notepad, and then write these down. So I'm going to start with I'm going to cheat here a little bit. 2-part match. The Great Muta versus Hiroshi Hase. Everyone knows of the very famous match from December 14th, 1992. That's the Muta scale match, where they set the scale for blood in all pro wrestling. But a lot of people don't realize that there's a less famous match from September 14th, 1990 that I think is arguably much bloodier, that sets the tone and story for the rematch in 92. So if you've never seen that one, I would say go out of your way. After that, I'm going to go through the list quickly. Antonio Inoki versus Hiro Saito from April 27th, 1987. The famous match where they fight with handcuffs on, and Saito bleeds everywhere. It's pretty great. After that, Great Muta versus Jinsei Shinzaki, also known as what was his name in WWE? Hakushi, yeah. From April 29th, 1996. Shinzaki bleeds so bad his white pants turn red. After that, probably the bloodiest match in all of New Japan Pro Wrestling history, Yuji Nagata versus Kensuke Sasaki from the Tokyo Dome on January 4th, 2004. That is on World. That is a bloodbath. That's really, really, really bad. And this one gives it a run for its money. Yuji Nagata versus Toki Makabe from July 6th, 2007. And I think they just uploaded it on World, which I couldn't believe they did, because that one's pretty brutal also. This one is hard to find. It's not on World, but if you've ever seen it, go out of your way to watch it. Katsuyori Shibata versus Kazunori Murakami from October 13th, 2003. Murakami literally fucks up Shibata. Maybe the worst I've ever seen a guy get fucked up in a wrestling match. It's hard to watch. It's pretty bad. Tatsumi Fujinami versus Akira Maeda from June 12th, 1986. The famous match between these two guys. I think got 5 stars from Dave Meltzer, and it was stopped for blood loss. Pretty great. And it's a shoot. It's not blade job, so it's hard way, which is pretty cool. Also, the famous match, Wrestling Observer Match of the Year, Naoki Sano versus Jushin Thunder Liger, January 31st, 1990. After that, two other ones that I wanted to mention, Hulk Hogan versus Abdullah the Butcher, May 26, 1982. This is probably the first time I've ever seen Hulk Hogan Hulk up ever in a wrestling ring or on recorded tape that I can remember. And it's against Abdullah. It's pretty crazy actually. It's like 1980s Hogan versus like a bloodthirsty Abdullah. It's pretty crazy. And then the last one is Yano versus Tenzan from September 26, 2015. This is the one where Tenzan fucks up the diving headbutt and actually splits Yano wide open with the headbutt, like legit, and he bleeds everywhere during the G1. Which that one actually that's July 26, 2015. And I didn't name them all, but there's a bunch of like Tenzan and a bunch of like Makabe matches, especially those chain matches Makabe had.
I have a few matches here. So I saw your list, and you pretty much got all the top ones there. But I did kind of in my research today find a few more that you guys can check out. So there's Nagata versus Makabe from New Japan Cup 2007. Nakamura versus Makabe from April 8th, 2007. Then there's Hiroki Goto versus Makabe from the G1 2008. Makabe versus Nakamura from G1 2009. Nakamura versus Fale from the 2014 New Japan Cup Finals. And then AJ Styles versus Hiroshi Tanahashi from New Beginning in Osaka 2015.
Yeah, that's the one where I think Tanahashi like jumps off for the high fly flow and he hits his head on one of the Young Bucks.
Yeah,
and he starts bleeding everywhere like hard way. It's pretty great actually. I think same thing happened with Nakamura in the Fale match. Like he got busted open hard way.
Yeah, and I've seen those last two matches. The other two matches I have not seen. I kind of had like fast forward to see like the bloodiness, but yeah, they were pretty bloody. So.
And I mean some of the more like recent ones, Naito and Jericho. Jericho and Kenny Omega, like those had some blood in them too. So,
yeah. Next question here from Kyle Martin from the Wrestling Squared Circle. He has 4 questions here. So his first question: why does practically every single New Japan show have throwaway 8-man tag team matches? And keep in mind, Kyle is a newer viewer of New Japan. He's not a constant viewer of New Japan, but he listens to our show every week to kind of get his info on New Japan.
Okay. That's a great question. Do you want to start, Jeremy?
Yeah, I can start. And so, from an American wrestling fan standpoint, a lot of times 8-man tags, you don't see them that often. Usually they're maybe like go-home shows or kind of build to multiple programs. It might seem like a little bit of a bigger of a deal. But in New Japan, they use these 8-man tags either as a part of previewing matches, or you have kind of like your faction versus faction. Like overall in that tour, there might be like LIJ and Chaos might be feuding throughout the whole tour. So you have these 8-man, tag matches kind of set up. And then also it's just a way to get people on the card, especially like, your New Japan dads. You're not going to put, guys like Kojima and Tenzan and Nagata in, singles matches every night. You're going to put them in these 8-man, 6-man tags and have them work with the young lions there. You get them over, nice nostalgic pop. You get some experience for the young lions, and you persevere. You preserve these New Japan dads.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point there, Jeremy. I concur with everything you mentioned. When you talk about preservation of the wrestlers, with these guys having such a hectic tour, hectic schedule, can you imagine how much harder they'd all have to work if they were doing singles matches primarily, most nights of the week? And that's how it is in the States. You'll have a guy like, let's say, Cena and The Fiend, and then they're going to do for the next 2 months, maybe 1 month they'll wrestle 5 nights a week in singles matches. And then the next month they're doing cage matches. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, that gets taxing. And not only that, those are house shows that can't really get aired. There's not a lot of marketability to that. You know what I mean? Like they talked about like doing that with the network before. They're like, well, what if we started airing all the house shows? And it's like, would anyone want to watch that? The matches aren't even really that good if you think about it, because they're saving themselves for TV, saving themselves for pay-per-view and everything of that nature. What's nice here is everyone gets on the card, like you mentioned. So when fans go, they get to see the guys that they like, and they don't get to see them put in a sorry ass performance in a house show match that's throwaway. They get to see them maybe not put in a Wrestle Kingdom level performance, but they get to see them have a good, really good, solid match that they're not exerting themselves the whole time, because it's a multi-man, 6-man, 8-man, 10-man tag that allows them to get their shit in and allows them to be showcased, but still kind of saves them. And then for the storytelling elements, the faction aspect of New Japan is a very, very important aspect to the ongoing stories just all throughout the thing. So it's not just that they're throwaway, like there's developing stories all the time, and people complain with New Japan about how there's no talking segments or very few of them, and where are the stories? Well, the stories are happening in the match. So you have to be watching the actual throwaway, quote unquote, 8-man tags to see the nuanced stories that are taking place in the ring, because that's where they set up feuds. That's where they set up the storylines. And, the other thing too is, I'll just say this, like, aside from like probably Dragon Gate, New Japan has the best multi-man tag team matches like in the world. So, they can be somewhat formulaic, but they're always good. Like, I very rarely ever see bad multi-man matches in New Japan.
Right. Either they're short because they're the openers, like New Japan Dad versus Young Lions. It's a nice little short opening match. Or, it's like LIJ, we talk about all the time. LIJ has the best multi-man tags. They're such a solid unit. And it's, a great matchup like those guys against Chaos, against Suzuki-gun, against Bullet Club. So, yeah, those matches aren't wasted at all. And, you might look at the schedule and you might see LIJ versus Chaos 3 nights in a row, 8-man tag. And you're like, what do I need to watch all these 8-man tags? And you mentioned the stories are there. Like, they might not do the same finish every single night. Maybe a Chaos guy gets to win one night, LIJ guy gets to win the next night, or there's some kind of post-match, scuffle or pushing or kind of body language between certain guys. Like, they tell different stories. They advance the stories in each of these matches each night.
Well, here's the other thing too, and I just want to touch on this before we move on to the next part of the question. In the States, it used to be where if you were going to see a good wrestling match between two top stars, like two top single stars, you either needed to go to the house shows because everything was a touring business. Like when you watch TV, it was all squash matches with maybe one C-list singles match between maybe the Repo Man and Rick the Mama Martel. You know what I mean? Something like that. Like, or you had to watch pay-per-view, or you had to watch like a NBC special, like Saturday Night's Main Event. Like, it wasn't until wrestling went to like live format with Monday Night Raw and everything, to where we started actually getting, we're gonna get Kane and Boss Man tonight. We're gonna get 8 matches that are all single. Like we're getting pay-per-view level matches. But then it turned into, we're getting that all the time. To now when you watch WWE, I mean, it's very rare that you see a match that hasn't been thrown away or given away on free TV multiple times before you actually see it, to where, like, they just did like Kevin Owens and what's his name, Seth Rollins on the pay-per-view, and we saw them in like a million matches 2 years ago,
right?
And then a bunch just now. So like, it kind of doesn't matter. In New Japan, they save those matches for the big shows, and that's why they do the multi-man matches, is to protect those matches, so they're not constantly throwing away all those matches. That's why when they do, say, like the G1, and they run a 2-month tournament that's all singles matches, everyone's minds are blown, because we didn't get those all year long. Like, it's very rare to get singles matches in New Japan.
Right.
So it's smart for them.
So his second question here says, does Gato discriminate against older wrestlers? I've been watching since New Year's Dash 2016, and I find NJPW is a place to be for guys in their prime in their lives. However, other than Tanahashi, Ishii, Jericho, and Suzuki don't get rewarded with world title runs despite them seemingly near constant great performances.
I mean, so here's the thing, like, those are all completely different scenarios, to be honest, and I don't think any of them have to do with age except for maybe Suzuki, to be honest with you. Like, in Ishii's case, they weren't going to give him a title run when he was young. that has to do with public perception from the office. That has to do with like his background prior to coming to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and just basically perception. And at this point in 2020, he's at a higher status than he was in 2015 or 2016.
Well, I think
so
he's saying that Ishii is like one of these guys, even though he's older, gets like a spotlight.
But it's not because of his age,
right?
No. He's saying, however, other than Tanahashi, Ishii, Jericho, and Suzuki don't get rewarded with world title runs.
Yeah, I think he's trying to say like those are the four guys that kind of get like.
No, he's saying they don't. He's saying other than Tanahashi,
Gotcha.
Ishii, Jericho, and Suzuki don't get rewarded with title runs.
Gotcha. I mean,
That's what he's saying.
Well, Tanahashi was just champion not too long ago.
Right. He's saying other than Tanahashi.
Yeah.
All the other old guys in the company don't get opportunities or get the spotlight, basically. That's what it sounds like to me based on what he's saying. And then, like, Jericho obviously is a different situation altogether because he's a star outside, and he has been given title opportunity in the past. Even just he headlined Dominion. He's like a headliner. Mm-hmm. And Suzuki's had multiple title shots as well. So, I mean, I don't think that like he has a thing against guys who are out of their prime, but obviously the working level in New Japan is extremely high. The talent level is extremely high. And when you look at guys like a Jericho or a Suzuki or like even say like a Yuji Nagata, guys who can still go, who are like really great, there are a plethora of guys who are just that much better, who are more well equipped and like are in place, like you have your big four, your big five right now. And it is, Okada, Jay White,
Ibushi, Naito.
Ibushi and Naito. Those are like your four big guys right now. So, I mean, I think you'd have a hard argument to tell me that all the guys that are older than them are surpassed all of them in terms of popularity, star appeal, in-ring working ability, and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, as IWGP champion, like you're supposed to be the top guy, having the best matches
in the world.
Yeah. And so, also, I love Kojima, but I know Kojima is not at the IWGP title level anymore. He can't go out there and have a 4 to 5 star main event, 30 plus main event with these guys. So, guys like in the Kojima era, those kind of guys, so the New Japan dads, they're, like we mentioned earlier, they're in the multi-man tag. You still see them, and they get their time to shine. They might have a single match every here and there, maybe a never title shot. But, yeah, those guys are not going to be featured in the IWGP title scene.
I think the fact that he gives all those guys that you mentioned and other ones that weren't mentioned opportunities to have those seemingly great constant performances shows that he's not against them. He gives them plenty of opportunities that most other companies probably wouldn't be giving them at this point.
Right.
Next part of the question, he says, your guys' opinion on who is the greatest Intercontinental Champion in New Japan history. Figure it'll come down to either Nakamura or Naito, but I'm curious if you guys think otherwise. I think it's real simple. It's Nakamura, and it's not even questionable in my mind.
Yeah, same here. Nakamura, I mean, just elevated that title to another level. Obviously, him as champion main evented over the IWGP title when he had it. So, yeah, hands down Nakamura.
Next question, he said, targeted for Josh. If you don't mind, man, would you please explain to me what was UWF and their connection to New Japan history, or at least what is the similarity to or the differences between UWF and UWFI, please? It fucks me up because I hear Cornette talk about a different UWF in the States. So, yeah, there's like 3 UWFs, to be honest with you. Okay, let me break it down even further. There was 3 different versions of the Japanese UWF, and then there was 2 different UWFs in the States. There was Mid-South Pro Wrestling, eventually was turned into UWF by Cowboy Bill Watts. So there was that one, and then there was Herb Abrams UWF, which was a totally different wrestling company. But when we're talking about Japanese UWF, we're not talking about those companies. They're talking about the original shoot wrestling company in New Japan, or in Japan. So, not to go into a whole in-depth story lesson, I'll break it down very simply. So, Inoki, obviously, his whole idea of strong style was the idea that wrestling could be portrayed as an actual martial arts form. And so he started having these worked, quote unquote, shoot fights with practitioners of other martial arts. So he fought boxers, judo fighters, karate guys, sambo, also, Olympic wrestlers, all sorts of different martial artists. And, he was like, they were called different style fights. At the same time, all the guys that were in the New Japan dojo were always taught how to actually, what we call, quote unquote, shoot, how to actually fight. And in the 80s, all these different, young guys who idolized Inoki, idolized Carl Gotch, and, loved the shoot aspect of what they did, but didn't so much love the entertainment aspect or the politics. And were kind of upset that, like, maybe in the gym I can whip everybody, but then I got to go out and lay down for Ricky Choshu. You know what I mean? Right. That kind of sucks. So there's a lot of guys that kind of got tired of that. And then, the whole idea of Inoki telling them like that pro wrestling is a strong martial arts, but then they have to like go out there and work the Western style of wrestling. They didn't like that. So there was a collection of young talent in the early 80s who left to form their own wrestling promotion called the UWF. It was somewhat successful in the beginning, but the problem was that their two biggest stars, Satoru Sayama and Akira Maeda, had different philosophies. They actually ended up getting into a real fight, which pretty much ended the promotion. Most of those guys came back to New Japan, had an invasion angle. They did great business, and then after a year or two, a lot of them left to go start their own UWF again. This time it was called UWF Reborn. And that lasted for about a year or two. And then same thing. They came back, most of them, to New Japan. And when everything kind of broke down in the late 80s, a lot of those guys ended up splitting off into three different groups. There was the guys that went to PWFG. There was the guys that went to Rings with Akira Maeda, and then there was the guys that went with Takada to start UWFI, which was the third successor to the other two UWFs. Very similar in style, not exactly the same, and then eventually, UWFI and New Japan had their big rivalry in the mid '90s, where they ended up breaking all the Tokyo Dome gate records. For about a 1 to 2 year period, UWFI was the largest drawing wrestling promotion in the entire world because it was perceived as being real, even though it wasn't.
Boom. Nice little history lesson there for you guys.
And there's a lot more you guys can look into that. I mean, I love that stuff.
So moving on to the next question here from Reddit user Brian James Interactive. He says, was my dad is a heel wrestler low-key modeled on Takashi Iizuka?
I don't think it actually was, but low key, maybe it was.
Yeah, young, good looking guy is a top, kind of a top guy, and then gets older and kind of does like a crazy gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of young Takashi Iizuka, I think about like him getting destroyed by the Steiners in WCW. I think about the great match he had with Owen Hart in oh God, I forget what it's called. The precursor to ECW or Tri-States Wrestling.
Oh yeah, Tri-City.
Joel Gerhardt, I believe was his name. And then I think about like his short run where like he was having the shoot matches with the UWFI guys in the mid '90s, and then when he was kind of tagging with did he used to tag with Nagata? Was that the guy? I'm trying to remember. Like in the late '90s, he kind of after the whole thing blew up between when I've gone through too much history lessons. When Hashimoto got beat up by Ogawa, he was one of the guys that like fought for New Japan to break up that fight, and it kind of actually gave him like Inoki liked that and gave him a push, and he ended up getting like good tag matches. I think it was with Nagata. I could be wrong though.
Didn't he team with Tenzon at one point? Was that after that?
They did that, but that was like toward when he started getting uglier. But yeah, I mean, you think about he was like a a technical whiz, this young, good-looking technical guy, and then eventually like got uglier and uglier and kind of lost his mind and went crazy, and not for real, but that was the gimmick, and kind of became like one of the most dastardly heels. Like, yeah, my dad as a heel wrestler might be modeled after him. Who knows?
Yeah. And then he says, not really a question, but just to say the new Scott Norton interview with Chris Norton is great. Any thoughts/reactions on this podcast episode? The stories he talked about with NWO are awesome.
I haven't gotten a chance to listen to it. What do you think?
Yes, I listened to it today. I thought it was great. Scott told some great stories, just being in Japan, just kind of some of the differences there. And like, yeah, the NWO stuff, he talked about how huge NWO was in Japan and how they would get off.
It was
like, there was a time period when, like, before NWO, like, he would get a lot of interviews and stuff like that, and then, like, I guess like the popularity kind of like died down a little bit, and then he was in NWO, and when he would come over for the NWO, like, they'd get off the plane, get off the airport, and all these reporters would be there, like, trying to interview them and stuff like that, and just talking about how big NWO was and just like all the stories like that. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, it's a really good listen.
Yeah, when you talk about marketable brands, there might not be any angle that's ever been run in the history of wrestling that produced something as marketable as like the NWO. Because I mean, it was such a huge thing in the States, but it was such a huge thing in Japan too. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Next question here from Reddit user PSAN91. What was your favorite cameo in My Dad is a Heel Wrestler? I marked out to Shingo just pumping some weights and grunting in the gym. Okay.
When was Shingo in this movie? Did you see Shingo?
That's what I was going to say. Like, maybe I missed him. I think they're confusing Shingo for Kitamura.
I think so, too, because I was like, I haven't rewatched it, but I was like, I think they're talking about Kitamura or Oka, or because I was like, I did not see Shingo in this production whatsoever.
And this was
or maybe I just missed it.
This is 2018. It's before Shingo came in, right?
Yeah, but, we discussed this, when we talked about the movie. I don't know, like, for sure if it was just strictly all New Japan guys, but it seemed like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my favorite cameo by far, I guess mine was obviously when, with LIJ, with Naito and Hiromu, when they, were in the restaurant and he says tranquilo.
Yeah, that was good. But I did pop for seeing Kitamura just because, at the time, like,
yeah,
Kitamura was so huge, supposed to be the next big guy, and he's doing his series of matches kind of thing, and yeah.
I like that he was walking around with his mouthpiece and with the fangs.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe that's why I was thinking maybe they thought it was
Shingo.
But maybe we're just idiots and we missed Shingo. Maybe he was there all along and we didn't see him.
Yeah, I must have missed him. But yeah, we'll talk about the movie here in a bit.
Next question from a great name, Chase Owens. Mark, love that name.
This your burner?
He says, "It's not my burner." He said, "If you could have any wrestler of the New Japan, would you want a themed?" If you could have any wrestler in New Japan who you could give your own themed show for, similar to how GCW and other indies have wrestlers themed shows, who would it be and what matches would you like on that show and why? So I didn't pre-book a themed show necessarily, but can you think of a cool show you'd like for any of the wrestlers?
So, my man's Kojima, so I would do some kind of like Kojima's like strongest arm. And it would just be a match of like all like Hoss matches where dudes are like trying to prove like who has the best lariat. You put Ishii, Goto, Shingo, all these like never guys on there, and it's just like Big E says, two big beefy guys slapping meat, and you just have these dudes killing each other trying to see who has the strongest arm.
God, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think like who could have a really like cool show. I feel like if they wanted to like branch off into like comedy, like and just go full shtick, they could give Taguchi a show.
Yeah, I could see it. A lot of these GCW and indie shows are kind of like comedy based or shtick based. So yeah, I could see like a Taguchi's, like, I don't know, the coach's like play field or whatever, the coach's field or whatever.
I mean, like, this sounds like cheating almost because he's on every blood sport show, and that's kind of what I would love to have. Plus, he already does. He does a show every year for, I forget which independent company it is, but he does one already that's kind of like this. But I would love for Minoru Suzuki to have his own like shoot style show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would be like I don't know, maybe like, you know, because he founded Pancrase. He's like one of the like greatest like, you know, Japanese MMA practitioners of all time. And I would just love for him to like be able to like bring in. I think the concept would be this: it'd be like New Japan versus the world, and it would be like, it would be like Minoru Suzuki bringing in all his like friends or colleagues from outside of Japan and bringing them in to like have shoot wrestling matches with like people in Japan, you know, so or in New Japan. I don't know.
You could also remember NWO had their sold out shows. You can do like a Bullet Club sold out.
Well, they've done shows like that for Suzuki-gun before.
Yeah.
They've done theme shows for Suzuki-gun. They've done theme shows for Makabe. They've done theme shows for just Taka and Taichi.
Yeah, Taka Taichi Mania.
They've done produce shows for a lot of those guys before, so it's not completely unheard of. And then, you know, during the Dark Ages, they used to do weird like produce shows. Like Chono had his own, Muto had his own. Like, yeah, so I mean, they've kind of done stuff like this before.
Yeah. Next question from Reddit user JTom416. Who in NJPW will look the most refreshed / improved once wrestling starts again?
Hopefully Naito.
Yeah, I know he was pretty banged up there before the break. So yeah, it'd be great if he kind of came back a little bit fresh. Dude, I think Tanahashi, I think this break is great for Tanahashi, and I think this could lead to Tanahashi having like a really great G1 this year.
No, see, the secret is that he never stops, and now that they're forcing him to stop, it's going to cause everything to fall off. Yeah. The Ace don't sleep.
I think the LA dojo, maybe the New Japan dojo guys too, but you know, when we talk to Carl Fredericks, I mean, those guys are still working out at the dojo and getting their workouts in. Like, those guys are just, you know, getting jacked and watching tape and training. Like, I feel like those guys are going to be like really ready to go.
Bro, me too. I've been in here. I've been clanging and banging. Actually, that's not true. I'm using these rubber bands, so I'm just expanding and elongating. It's pretty great. I already ripped one of them, so those things are bullshit.
Ishii's another guy that's been pretty banged up and working through injuries, so this is probably pretty good for him too.
There's a lot of guys, but my first answer is pretty serious, actually. I mean it. I hope it actually is Naito.
Yeah. Next question here from Reddit user JustALittleBear01. Do you think, given the extra unplanned time off, some of the more older, beaten-up talents may decide to just not come back in the ring? I'm mostly thinking Jado, who could still manage, and Tenzan.
I mean, Jado's barely in the ring anyways, so, I mean, who knows? I think with him, like, they might eventually do if they do a Jado send-off, then it's going to be a Gato send-off too. I can't imagine that they ever do one for just one or the other guy at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't think anyone's going to do that, honestly. I mean, but then again, you never know. Like, you know, one day Kitamura is a top prospect. Next day, like, he's just inexplicably gone. Stuff like that happens. So you just don't know. But no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I expect, Tenzan, Kojima, Nagata, all those, you know, New Japan dads still kind of work the opening matches and maybe work some, maybe never title matches or kind of smaller programs with Young Lions, and then until they kind of have their send-off shows.
Wrestlers still got to eat. They still got to pay bills. Like,
gotta get that food on the table. Next question from Reddit user Highest Fly Flow. Question for Josh. I was watching Liger vs. Black Tiger 1 from some DVD I found online. The match, I think, is from 1989 because of Liger's attire and was a wrestling match with boxing match-like rules, 10 rounds, 3 minutes each. Any clue WTF this was? It was a good match, but the structure was confusing. Also, Black Tiger 1 was so extra. I love him.
Yeah, so I actually am very familiar with this match. So I love Black Tiger 1. Black Tiger 1 is also known as British British wrestling star, Mark Rollerball Rocco. I always have trouble saying his name. It's weird.
Too many R's.
Yeah, too many R's. But Rollerball, no, it's the all like rollerball, but I want to say, but then I want to say Rocco, so I say rollerball. Like I say, no, Rollerball Rocco is one of my all-time favorite World of Sport joint promotions British style wrestlers, and he is the original Tiger Mask. So the deal here was that like they hadn't fully acknowledged that it's Mark Rocco necessarily, but everyone kind of knows. Like in Japan, like identities are not as closely guarded as they are in, say, Mexico, and so with him being from Europe, wrestling the European style, he had a European style match with Liger in 1989. I think this is for the junior title, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it was 10 rounds. It was 3 minutes each. They were not strict European rules because there's a lot of things that they did back then during like the World of Sport days that we don't do now. But it was something akin to the World of Sport style that you would see over in Britain, which was kind of the idea here. It's not a great match, to be honest with you. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it, but they had a better match in 1987 when Liger was still wrestling under his name, Kiji Yamada. If you're gonna watch a match between Black Tiger and Liger, check out the 87 Yamada match. It's much, much better.
Nice. So next question from Reddit user Viking Pain. Not a New Japan question, but what are your guys' opinion on cinematic pro wrestling matches like Matt Hardy's Final Deletion or the recent Boneyard and Firefly Funhouse matches at WrestleMania 36? A few of my friends and I rewatched WrestleMania 36, and while I thought the matches were fun, they absolutely hated the two matches, citing how goofy they were.
Yeah. Also, the next question kind of fits in with this too, so I guess we'll just touch on it. Sir Sam said, could New Japan ever do a super cinematic style match like the Boneyard match? Would they be able to make it fit with the rest of the company? And if so, who would you want to see in it?
All right, so starting with the first part with Viking Pain, I really loved Final Deletion. The first one was the best, and on the Hardy compound, there was a ring there was a referee. It was explained like, TNA cameras were sent there, or TNA official was sent there. It was still kind of set up like a match, but obviously they were doing goofy, Matt Hardy's shooting off fireworks. Then eventually they kind of brawl to the Lake of Reincarnation, and Jeff Hardy becomes Willow again, and they're doing all this stuff, and then he falls off the cross and all that stuff. But I don't know. I really enjoyed the Final Deletion, and I thought it was kind of, great stuff for what was kind of going on, really different stuff going on. Now, the Boneyard match in the Firefly Funhouse, the Boneyard match I liked better than the Firefly Funhouse match, and yeah, to me, both of them were just kind of goofy fun. Like, I didn't treat them like serious matches. I know there are people out there slapping out their star ratings on Grapple. I did not rate either of these matches. They were just ridiculous, kind of goofy stuff that WWE just kind of threw out there in the situation they had to deal with.
I mean, so some of you would be surprised, but I think a lot of times I come off as being super gatekeepery and this purist, which to some extent I am, but when it came to this stuff, I loved it. I just freaking loved it. I can't help it. I know that it's not it's hard to take seriously, a lot of this stuff. And I'm with you, Jeremy. I really liked everything Jeremy Borash did with the Broken Universe back then. I liked the promo videos leading up to the first Final Deletion. I loved the actual Final Deletion. I loved all the things that they did week to week with Matt Hardy and Brother Nero, and just the vignettes that they would cut. And then they did the I don't remember the names of the other two. I know one was the Ultimate Deletion or something.
Something because they did one where they came back.
It was the whole episode.
They came back together, and it was the Hardys against Abyss and Crazy Steve. It was a tag match,
right?
Ultimate Deletion,
and that was darker. It was more horror film almost,
right?
And I love that stuff. And it was kind of like a law of diminishing returns. It didn't work out for them as well each time going forward. But they kind of like built upon what they did, and I liked it. And the whole time I was watching both of those matches you just mentioned during WrestleMania, I just obviously like there's a lot of influence from the Final Deletion stuff on this. I'm fine with it. I think that there are some companies it works for, some it doesn't. In this case, if you want my honest opinion, you compare it to what you get on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown on most weeks, and this is more fun and entertaining than most of the matches that they have in WWE on any given pay-per-view. So I was fine with it. I mean, like, it's hard for me to take that company serious in any respect at all anyways. So if they want to do some avant-garde like wrestling and protect the Undertaker or like try to restore Bray Wyatt, I'm all for it. Like, trust me, there's no chance that the match between Bray Wyatt and John Cena, an actual in-ring product match or an actual in-ring product match at WrestleMania between Taker and AJ in 2020 was going to be better than either of those two things that they did. It just wasn't. It doesn't matter if it was an empty arena or if they did it in a sold-out Raymond James Stadium. This was the best case scenario. Like, seriously. So I'm fine with it. I think that it's not something that they should go to the well with like too many times. You know what I mean?
Right.
But for two characters that in kayfabe it works for, like the Dead Man, like the Fiend, why not? You know what I mean? But I don't think like Drew Gulak should be doing that, or you know what I mean? Like,
right. Like,
who knows? Like wrestling like needs to definitely change and needs to evolve, and there needs to be advances, and there hasn't been too many advances in the past 20 years. And who knows? Like, the idea of cinematic wrestling isn't, in my opinion, the worst thing out there. Like, I know that there's a lot of problems with Lucha Underground, but I loved Lucha Underground.
But I think Lucha Underground's a little bit different because you had a whole show where everything kind of fit within that universe. And then here with WWE, you kind of have regular matches that's supposed to be in a real world. And then you're kind of jumping into this fantasy, cinematic situation.
Well, that's true, except for the fact that like most of the time Vampiro and Matt Stryker like weren't even clued into those backstage things, so they were just seeing a regular match and calling it like a regular match.
Right.
They might like leak a small portion of what might have been in that vignette, but they were almost like clueless to the backstage stuff that we as the viewer were privy to.
Right.
Which was cool. And you're right, it was its own self-contained universe, but so is WWE. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be as outlandish as, say, the third season of Lucha Underground. But there might be like, I don't know. I remember when TNA, like in 2011-ish, they started kind of going to a more like gritty backstage, almost cinematic presentation for their just backstage stuff. It didn't last, but it was kind of cool. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
That era. So I mean, like, it just can't be the same shit that like WWE always does, or most North American companies do in general. Now, I will say this: if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, well, a couple things. One, I do know that there are people who will be turned off by this, but if you actually look, like, I know, like on, for instance, like Wrestling Observer's webpage, they did a poll for how many people liked the Firefly Funhouse. Like 86% of people were favorable to it. This is like the smarkiest of smart like people,
yeah,
who would normally shit all over something like this, and they liked it. So I mean, that kind of tells you that there are people out there. There is a market for this, and not only that, but like the Fiend. What's the thing that's gotten him over? It's those backstage segments, those Firefly Funhouses. They're creatively incredible. It's the matches that suck and the bad booking that sucks. It's not the backstage stuff. So, I mean, to some degree, this stuff does work. But as far as like New Japan doing this, I don't think it fits them because they are presented like a sport.
Correct.
And that's the big difference. Now, that's not to say they've never done wacky or zany things. In fact, they've done a match like this before. They've done two of them. In fact, they've done the Island Death match. The first one was between Inoki and Saito in like 87, and then I think in 92, Tiger Jeet Singh and Hiroshi Hase also did an Island Death match, and both of them are like really long. Like one's like 2 hours. Or like 3 hours, and I'm not exaggerating. Like it's really shitty, but they've done things like this in the past. So like I don't think New Japan should go that way necessarily, but who knows? I mean, everything changes. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to do it, I mean, Evil's your guy, the Lord, King of Darkness world.
To me, like he's just a goth dude. Like he's not actually supernatural.
Right, but I feel like he's the closest thing they have right now to somebody that would be considered like somebody would have his own world or powers or whatever.
See, that's my only thing. Like in the context of other places, I'm fine with it because it's like, okay, it's goofy, it's zany, but like in New Japan, no one is supernatural. Like everybody, like Evil's not actually super powered. He just wears lights on his hands. We all know this. Like it's widely accepted. Like he's just a super goth. The moment that they tell me that Evil's actually got powers, I'm gonna be pissed because I'm like, why didn't you use those on Okada when you were facing him for the IWGP title all those years ago? Like that makes no sense. This company has jumped the shark. So no, I don't think this company should do that necessarily.
Yeah, I don't want to see that in my New Japan.
But then again, like, there are things I like in wrestling that I don't want to see here. I don't want to see light tubes here, but like I'll watch a Freedoms match every now and again. I don't want to see, a wrestling match in a like little room with like with no ring and no ropes, but like I'll watch a Gato move every now and again.
Right. Like, yeah, but keep all that in its place. Keep that in Gato move. Keep the Boneyard and Funhouse and WWE.
Same thing with the Joshis. I watch a women's match every now and again, but don't be ruining my New Japan by bringing women into it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my god. Oh man, you're gonna upset.
This is a true sport.
Gonna upset the Joshi fans. Oh my gosh. Moving on.
I'm just the low hanging fruit.
Next question from Reddit user DomHomie101. It's a series of questions here. Would it be beneficial for NJPW to form some type of working arrangements with other companies like Noah, AJPW, Dragon Gate to make the process of returning to shows the easy one?
Well, there might be some benefit to them actually doing something like this if they want to try and keep the marketplace healthy. You think about like when Noah left All Japan in like 2000. Shortly after that, there was a working relationship between All Japan and New Japan, which seemed unfathomable at the time, but it was done to kind of strengthen the health of the scene because it's not beneficial for a giant like that to go under. New Japan's also worked in the past with other companies like DDT, War, Michinoku Pro, UWF, UWFI, Noah, All Japan, like almost everybody actually at some point. I know right now they're not in that same place where they're doing that, but like these are different circumstances. So I'm not saying it will happen, but in some regard, it might make some sense to do that.
Yeah, I'm all down for, working relationships and get some fresh blood, some fresh talent, get some new matchups there. I think it'd be interesting.
But keep in mind, I think if they did it, it would benefit those companies more than New Japan.
Right, yeah.
Like, I don't think New Japan needs to do it. I don't think New Japan needs other companies to run shows once everything changes. I think those other companies might need the help of a giant like them. But then keep in mind, there are major media conglomerates like what's the one group?
Cyber Agent.
Yeah, like Cyber Agent owns Noah and DDT.
Yeah.
So I mean that who knows.
Next part of his question: thoughts on Sting's work in NJPW. What are some of his must-watch matches in the company? I'm not talking about fake Sting. I'm talking about the real Stinger.
Well, this might surprise you, but Sting kind of sucked in Japan. The only really good match of Sting's career that I can remember in New Japan is from the WCW New Japan Super Show. I think it was January 4th, 1992. It's like one of the headline matches. It's him and Muta against the Steiner brothers. And that match is like good. It's not great. I think at the time it got like 4.25, which is pretty good. But I don't think anything else Sting ever did in Japan like even comes close to that. He had a match with Muta during the 91 Super Show with WCW, and that's okay. He had a match in the Tokyo Dome against Inoki in 1995, and it's literally one of the worst New Japan matches of all time. It's like really, really, really shitty. So if you want to watch some terrible New Japan, you can watch that. He had the match for the WCW international title in 93, 94 with Rick Rude, where that's the match where Rick Rude's career got ended, and that's not even that good of a match. There's a lot of Sting work from 91 to 96. Sting toured Japan pretty frequently, but none of the matches, they weren't like horrible except for that Inoki match, but there's nothing really substantial, just the one tag match. Everything else kind of does suck, honestly.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it, so yeah, I'll take your word for it.
I'd say go out of your way to watch that one match, maybe the Muta match from the year before, like just because they're on major shows, but the rest of it, I wouldn't really bother with it.
He then says, since you guys live in... Oh, actually, skip the question. He said, I already got Jeremy's response to this question, but never got Young Boy's response. He said, so my question is, would you rather have a shitty match with a great build-up to it or a great match with a shitty build-up to it?
Well, we just had a really shitty match with a really great build to it in Edge and Orton, and I can tell you that I did not enjoy that. So I will take the great match with the shitty build.
Yeah, and that was my answer also.
and you know what? Like Jeremy had a much more nuanced opinion and take on it, and I agree. And I think it takes one to have the other in most cases. But like, let's be real. We just had a match that had a fantastic, build in Edge Orton. It was so good that people were talking about Hall of Fame credentials for both those guys again and everything. And then the match happens, and it's like, nah, Chief. So I'll take the latter.
Yeah, because like I said, that great match, that's what you end with. The great match. Like, yes, you went through a crappy build, but then you get to this great match, and it's awesome. It's like, all right, it was worth watching all those horrible segments to get to this awesome match.
I mean, yeah, or you might even just be like, I thought this was going to suck, and I'm surprised at how great it actually is because the build was so shitty.
Right.
So, yeah.
Then he says, since you guys live in Tampa area, have you guys ever visited Carol Baskin's Big Tiger Rescue Sanctuary? And do you think she had a hand in the death of her husband?
I've never been to Big Cat Rescue. Have you ever been?
I feel like I've been when I was a kid, maybe. I don't remember it for sure, but I have a feeling I might have on a field trip or something, but I have no memories of it if I did.
It's one of those things that I know about. I've never been. My girlfriend actually has been, and she did a private tour with another
with Carol Baskin.
No, yeah, her tour was with Carol Baskins.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, for real. Like she was dating someone else years ago, and they went to Big Cat Rescue, and they did a backstage tour, like with Carol Baskins. Yeah, like a private tour.
That's crazy.
So she's met her, and let me just say this: if you're listening to this podcast and you don't think Carol Baskins fed her husband to tigers, then you should probably unsubscribe and turn off the podcast right now because there's something wrong with you. Everybody knows Carol Baskins fed her husband to tigers.
Oh my God.
My favorite part of that show is the moment where Exotic Joe is talking about how someone tried to sprayed cologne on his shoes to get the tigers to eat him. They try to get him killed.
Yeah.
And she's laughing about it. She's like, if you want to get someone to get eaten by tigers, you'd have to like pour sardine oil on them or something. And I just sat there. I'm like, did she literally just say that?
Right. Like, how you know that, Carol? Oh my gosh.
Investigation Discovery is actually coming out with a follow-up show that literally is focusing entirely on the missing persons case of her ex-husband, and like the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office here has reopened the case.
Yeah.
They're investigating it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Crazy situation there. His next question, he says, how do you guys think a movie style match would look like in NJPW? We kind of answered that already.
I think it would look like Dragon George versus Cockroach Mask.
Yes.
Which is pretty great.
Yes. His last question, thoughts on the promotion WAR? Can a young boy give some background information on the promotion? So wrestling and romance.
shit. This is so much history, dude. Okay, so in 1990, I always forget how to say his first name, but Tenryu left All Japan. He was like the number 2 guy behind Baba, and he was getting passed up by, Kawada, Mizawa, and Kobashi and all that. So he leaves All Japan to form Super World of Sport. He gets a money mark behind him. He gets all the other companies to have people leave too. They form a partnership with WWF, and they start running Tokyo Dome shows, and they think it's going to be real successful. But by 1991, it is bankrupt, which I think a lot of people thought was going to happen to AEW, but didn't happen. So Tenryu kind of like kicks off his, basically like just dusts himself off, continues on, and he forms a new company originally called Wrestle and Romance. It was later renamed, I think, something like Wrestle Association R. But basically it was like the first really major indie league that wasn't like shoot style in Japan. Like there had been, prior to that, like the 2 big names in wrestling were like, first it was JWA, and then when that ended, it was like, All Japan and New Japan, and there wasn't really like a third player in town until the early 90s, and that's where War came in. And War was a really great company. They ran from like 92 to like early 2000 when Noah formed, because Tenryu had to fold it up so that he could basically take most of the guys from War and bring them over back to All Japan, so All Japan didn't die. But it was a really cool promotion because they didn't have anyone contracted in the early days. They pretty much were just bringing in freelancers and guys from outside, from like all over the country. That's like where like Ultimo Dragon and like
Chris Jericho
and Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrero, a lot of those guys first started in War. And it was a cool promotion because like on the same show, it was very varied. They would have they'd have like your traditional Puro, like, strike battles match. They'd have a shoot style match. They'd have like a lucha rezu match. They would have like an old man match. Like they had a lot of different styles of wrestling in War all throughout. For some reason, it always kind of got classified as a shoot style promotion, but it really wasn't, to be honest with you. I don't know why people said that, but yeah, I mean, War was cool. They even hosted, I think in 95, they hosted the second, what's it called? Was it Super Juniors?
Well, best Super Juniors? Or no, Super J Cup.
That's what it was. They held the 95 Super J Cup in War, and that's the one with the famous match between, I believe that one is the one with Dragon and Jericho. That's real famous. Plus, they had a special singles match between Psychosis and Rey Mysterio on that show. So, like, yeah, I mean, War was great. Like, I really like War a lot. That pretty much covers it, I guess.
Yeah, and I've heard like stories from Jericho Mysterio about War and kind of how it was, the promotion back then. So yeah, it seemed like it was a pretty cool promotion back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the major indie, like before Michinoku Pro and before like Toryumon and all that stuff.
Next question here from Twitter follower at Oscar Rooney says, who played a better father, Tana and My Dad is a Heel Wrestler, or Vader from Boy Meets World?
Oh man, what a tough question.
Dude,
did you watch Boy Meets World?
I did, yes. I love those episodes when Vader was on.
Yeah, I did too. I also, well, not all of them, because I liked the ones earlier when he was in WCW. Once he went to WWF and they did the episodes with him and Jake Snake, I didn't like that as much.
I don't really remember the difference.
Oh, I remember. But yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. Vader was probably a better dad than Tanahashi. Like, Tanahashi didn't smarten his kid up to the business. And on Boy Meets World, Frankie seemed to know what the deal was. Like, he was pretty smartened up to
he was on the up
deal.
and up, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the up and up. And, yeah, so.
And I feel like Vader was more involved in Frankie's life than Tana was in Shota's.
Yeah, he was a stern father. He would crack some skulls, Frankie got out of line. In My Dad's a Heel Wrestler, Shota's just running wild. Like, he's all over the city.
Snuck into the car.
Yeah, no supervision. Like, it's not right. So I love Tanahashi as a wrestler, but in this movie, he was a terrible father.
Yeah. And last question here from friend of the show, Dan Coffin. Best cinematic match of the year: the Boneyard match, Firefly Funhouse match, or Cockroach match versus Dragon George. And he also asked, who was your favorite cameo in My Dad's a Heel Wrestler?
Well, we talked about the cameo, but it's very, this is a tough question. I liked all three of these.
For me, it's hands down Cockroach match and Dragon George.
I guess I'll say Cockroach Mask and Dragon George, but man, I really like the Boneyard match. Old ass Undertaker talking shit to AJ, telling him he fought a good fight and shit. It's really good.
Oh my gosh.
I love everyone on Twitter talking about the nuance of the Firefly Funhouse match, and I'm like, it's not nuanced at all. It's very straightforward. Everything about it. The only thing that's nuanced about it is the fact that we're all in on the joke, but John Cena's not.
Right, yeah.
He's the one who's not in on it. We, as the audience, are. That was kind of smart, but I liked all three.
Nice. Well,
if we're being technical, Cockroach Mask Dragon George came out in 2018, so that's not even this year.
That's true. So if it's just between the Boneyard match and the Funhouse, I'm going with the Boneyard.
You like the Boneyard because of the physicality.
Yes.
I'll take the Funhouse match because it was David Lynchian. Cena's in the Black Lodge.
Well, that wraps up the questions. Now we're going to get Rich Latta on and do our review of My Dad is a Heel Wrestler.
Oh, spoiler alert. If you guys have not watched My Dad is a Heel Wrestler, this is not just a review, but there's heavy spoilers in this, so just be aware.
Yeah, well, this is a pretty in-depth review. So if you haven't watched the movie yet, go watch it and then come back to this section of the show. Going to get Rich on to review that, and then we're going to do the recommended match of the week and end the show. All right, at this time, we are joined by Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. Rich, how you doing, man?
I am well, gentlemen. Glad to be back on Keepin It Strong Style, working the territory over here and coming in with a good payoff, and
See, he comes in with a lot of mouth service talking about how he's glad to be here, like he's Dusty in Mid-South or something. But he's been big leaguing us. We keep trying to get this man on the show. And every week he's like, oh, no, I ain't got time for that.
Nah. Oh, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, once we figured out that My Dad is a Heel Wrestler was coming out, I was like, this is an A+ occasion.
Oh my God.
So
I'm not gonna lie. We've been talking for 2 years trying to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a long time coming.
Yeah, been 2-year build, long, chase, and it finally dropped Saturday. And
long-term storytelling.
Yep. I freaking loved it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So before we get into that, so how you been doing during the quarantine, man?
I have been working from home, so I've been at home for longer than the official quarantine has been going on. So I want to say maybe 3-4 weeks coming now. I'm finding ways to stay busy, watching lots of old wrestling that I have never seen before, like that Kenzo Kobashi stuff that you guys mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago. I've been watching a lot of Manami Toyota, Aja Kong. I've been making beats in the meantime. I'm always going to find something to do, but I am ready to drive around and start going to shows again. But apparently that is not happening anytime soon. So I'm quite pissed that WrestleMania week essentially got blown right when it comes to Tampa. But
God.
Yeah, what are the odds?
Right, dude. We've been literally planning for this week since November. As stuff started getting announced, and it's man, I was really bummed out this week, man. It's dude, yeah. we should have been, doing media at GCW, Tampa GCW. We should have been at For the Culture, at Takeover, Lions Break, Spring Break.
Bro, we had literally legit at least at minimum 3 of our own events planned. We were gonna be doing media. We had a strong style brunch planned. we were gonna do freaking Suplex Mania 2, and none of that happened.
Yep.
I feel
Imaginary.
You know what I feel like? I feel like Steve Austin when he's cutting that ECW promo.
It never happened.
And none of that shit ever happened.
We're gonna give you the U.S. title. You're gonna work with Sting, and then none of that ever happened.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, I'm ready.
Mother Nature told us that's not for you, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm ready to get back out and go on to some shows, man. Go to the Orpheum, go to Minarig Hall.
Yep.
Dude, I'm ready for us to just like all chill and have a drink together. Like, what the heck?
Yeah,
crazy. Like, we're gonna have virtual parties eventually. Like, God.
Yeah, we had the virtual party for we're recording this on Sunday, this segment, and so yeah, we had the virtual watch party last night for night 1 of WrestleMania.
Ooh.
One word: glorious.
So
the watch,
whenever you guys
the
hear
watch
this,
party, not WrestleMania.
Glorious.
Yeah,
I didn't see Bobby Roode on the thread.
yeah, or the screen. That man was sidelined.
Yeah.
Yo, like, no offense, but there's people on the group chat. I didn't even know who they were. Like, they had their like mic muted, and I was just like, "What's going on? Who are you?"
Yeah, I didn't know this thing had a limit. So there was like maybe like 10 or 11 of us in here, and
Yeah, I think the limit was 10, but then a bunch of people were trying to get it. And I'm like, sorry, man.
Yeah, it's late, man.
First come, first serve.
Telling you.
But
yeah, I'm glad I got it, and I felt like y'all was gonna leave without me. Oh man, but I gotta tell you guys, like, beyond a shadow of a doubt, like, yes, yesterday was WrestleMania, and yes, tonight there's gonna be another show, but the highlight of my day, by far, was watching My Dad is a Heel Wrestler.
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah, that movie was awesome, and so that's what we're going to talk about right now. We're going to review My Dad is a Heel Wrestler. Yeah, this, like, and Josh and I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, but yeah, I was expecting this movie to be, maybe kind of cheesy, maybe not all that great, and just kind of be whatever, but this thing was awesome.
Yeah, man, it was just, it was the best version of, I would say this is like a Disney movie, essentially, and it would be akin to showing someone, hey, this is how professional wrestling works without blowing the lid completely.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things you mentioned to me, Rich. So before I watched the movie, we were talking a bit about, you'd already watched it, and you were just like, the greatest thing is that they never actually completely break kayfabe. Like, it is never explained to anybody that this is a work in any way, shape, or form.
Yes. I thought it was amazing seeing I forget his real name, but Cockroach Mask and Dragon George and all those guys.
Gokuburi Mask.
Yeah, in that alternate universe, Lions Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
Did you guys think that was strange that it was Lions Pro Wrestling and everything looks identical to New Japan? Like,
yeah, I didn't understand the similarity there. Like, it was, I don't know why.
I'm not even making a joke. Like, my real question was, like, was New Japan involved in this or no? Like, was this a fictionalized version that was just like, like copyright, like copied, or were they involved to some degree? Like, I don't even know,
I mean, it had to be. I mean, but like that Dragon George guy, he kind of strangely resembled Kazuchika Okada, and there was a guy that looked like Tanahashi in the movie. It was quite amazing.
Well, I'm sure there had to be some kind of New Japan involvement, because obviously a good part of the roster was featured throughout the movie, and they used red shoes and everything, and so I'm wondering. Yeah. I guess maybe just to play along with the story and just to go for a fictional thing, because obviously, like, this is not really New Japan, and obviously they're not using Tanahashi as a babyface, so maybe they figure, well, since Tanahashi is playing a heel, we're going to use this fictional world and just make things similar.
It's all inverted.
Yes.
There's so much that I enjoyed about this. Like, the one thing I really enjoyed was just the actual wrestling that was portrayed in the movie itself. Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot of wrestling films over the years. Some of the more like larger notable ones here in the States would be like probably like The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, Ready to Rumble with like David Arquette and stuff. And oftentimes like the wrestling that's shown is very mundane or almost hokey, and it's not like actually portraying it the way it actually happened. Even in The Wrestler, which was a serious film, a lot of the wrestling was pretty shitty looking. Mm-hmm. But like in this film, they didn't go over the top, but they're doing actual real wrestling like what you would see in New Japan, which I was like, that is so, and obviously it's because they're using real wrestlers to do it, but I was like, that's really cool that like they're showing real wrestling.
You know what it felt like when I was watching the last match between Cockroach Mask and Dragon George? It felt strangely like I was watching kind of a stripped down movie version of the last time Tanahashi challenged Okada in Fukuoka. Like it felt like that match.
Yeah,
yeah, it did. I mean, almost, yeah, the whole kind of story of like, the upcoming young hot star and, the old veteran still trying to hold on to his top spot. It definitely mirrors the story of Tanahashi and Okada.
Yeah. And the cool thing was like when the kids got involved and then the kind of interplay, like when he has the crush on the young girl and she loves Dragon George, but he's like, afraid to basically tell, the rest of the kids that his dad is Cockroach Mask. So eventually, he's lying, and then his mom finds out about it. It's just like they turn it back and forth, so many times. And I just thought this was just like this was brilliant, really. And I see my man Tomohiro Ishii was in the movie doing a job, so some things were like reality in here, and I did not appreciate that. But my dog Tomohiro Ishii is a movie star now, so they will not try him like this.
Yeah, I almost turned the movie off at the beginning because my man Kojima was out there doing the job in the opening scene.
He made it to the finals of the Z1.
He did,
yeah.
But
the Z1, yeah.
So yeah,
here's the thing: the Z1's different because it's a single elimination tournament, and
Correct.
the G1 is round robin, so it's not the same at all.
So it's like McDonald's and McDowell's. Like that's kind of like the feeling I got.
They have the Big Mac, we have the Big Mick.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole kind of premise of this movie. So we have Tanahashi's playing this guy Takashi Umura, and at the beginning of the movie, we kind of see him in the finals of the Z1. He's hitting the fly high, which was his version of the high fly flow, and he's winning the Z1 tournament in Lion Pro Wrestling. And then apparently he gets like a knee injury from that, and then we kind of fast forward 10 years later, and since then he's become this heel wrestler named Cockroach Mask, and he's teaming up with Blue Bottle Mask, who's played by Taguchi.
Yeah, I just want to say right off the bat, when it comes to these two guys, when you hear the idea of like a movie that's headlined by a wrestler who's an active wrestler with no prior movie acting experience, you just start to cringe. The thought of that is like, oh God, this is gonna be some hot, like steaming pile of shit or something, and then you turn it on and it's like, okay, granted, I don't speak Japanese, so I can't speak with any true authority to say for sure whether this was good or not. But I'll tell you, I watch a lot of foreign films, a lot of subtitled stuff, especially even from like Asian culture. I thought Tanahashi did, I wouldn't even just say a passable job. I would say he did a really good job. A really good job. I was like, whoa, what the heck?
He felt like a dad. He felt like a fighter. Like just all these things in one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was actually pretty impressed with Taguchi's acting as well.
I thought Taguchi was good. He was a little like kind of corny in some parts, but he was sort of a comedic relief character. That's the kind of character he plays in wrestling, so it kind of fit hand in hand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but he wasn't like the over the top Taguchi.
No.
Goofy. Like, I mean, he had some funny parts, but I felt like he did, he was pretty good, in being mad. There's a part where, Cockroach Mask decides to, flip the script, go off book.
That was the one funny thing is like, so there's a scene later on where he's been a bad guy for all this time and his son is disappointed with him. So he decides he's going to try and reverse the clock and be a good guy wrestler again and, do his old high flying style and all that. So he takes the mask off and he was supposed to come out as a bad guy, but he decided to turn into a good guy mid match. It kind of reminded me of when Mizawa unmasked as Tiger Mask.
Yes.
The crowd goes nuts.
Yeah, because the crowd, when they did that, the crowd was going nuts and like chanting his like regular name, like Omura, and like going crazy.
And the whole time, like I just like when that happened, the music was great. I was sitting there, I was just like, this man decided to go against the script. He decided to change the script. Like this is a shoot brother right here.
Yeah, and that's like part of the parts where they never really tell you it's a work or whatever, but then they cut to the Booker, and the Booker is outraged, like the fake Gato or whoever the hell he was. But it was like, well, of course I fired him. I had to.
He went into business for himself.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, like Gucci's like, what the hell are you doing, man? He's like, what about our tag team? Like, once you unmask, you can never put the mask back on again.
Yeah.
So obviously part of this movie, the title's right there. My dad is a heel wrestler. One of the biggest parts of the movie is Tanahashi, but the other part is the actor who plays his son and the relationship between them once he discovers, because here's the problem. They didn't smarten that boy up. Okay. They didn't wise him up to the business or expose him. So when he finds out that his dad, Tanahashi, is a heel wrestler, he is heartbroken.
Yeah.
And all of his friends are making fun of him because of it. And they were like, we never want to grow up to be like that kind of person. Like, these kids are all in.
Right. But even before that, so, at the beginning, we have the kind of like show and tell kind of thing where they're talking about their parents. Yes. And, Tanahashi's running late. The flight from whatever event he was at was running late. And, the show.
He's probably in the States.
The New Beginning, the Lion Pro Wrestling New Beginning in USA tour.
Yeah.
And his son showed us, talking about how his dad's always drinking protein and talking about how awesome his dad is. And the kids were like, what does your dad do? And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, well, go find out. And so he tries to ask what his dad is.
He thinks his dad's in the mafia. Like the other kids.
Right.
Like,
yes. He's in a shady business.
Yes. And so then he tries to ask his dad, and of course, Tanahashi's the one that exposed the business. He's like, I'll tell you when you're older.
Not only that, he doesn't want to disappoint his son to let him know that I'm a scumbag.
Right.
Correct.
So shout out smarts this man, sneaks in the car, follows him to, I'm guessing Cork and Hall or whatever arena that was, and it's backstage or whatever, and sits in the crowd. The girl he likes and her dad's there, sits with them, and then he sees, Cockroach Mash doing the cockroach pose that his dad always does, and he was like,
"Oh no!" You feel his heart just dropping.
What's that? What's that one small arena? Shinjuku Face.
Yeah,
that's where they're at. That's one thing I want to say that was troubling about this. These children, where was their parents like half the movie? These kids were literally unfettered and allowed to just roam
around the city,
like cities with no adults. And these kids were like 8, 9 years old. These were not like even preteens. These were legit children. I was a little bothered by that.
Yeah, only Shota's the girl he liked. That was the one dad we really saw.
I know, and none of the parents were even like checking in with that father. You know what I'm saying? This is completely unrealistic. Like, this dude's just got like 7 kids at the wrestling show with
hanging out.
Just hanging out. No parents are checking in. Like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
The funny thing was some of the wrestlers that they used, they had like Kitamura out there lifting weights, looking huge. Yes. So they were going for full on wrestler. Like,
they had Oka.
Oka was out there. Yeah.
Makabe was scaring the kids, and Kawato was there.
That was something I loved, was just the use of the New Japan roster. Did you notice that they even used Kushida?
Yeah.
And very briefly.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of the, kind of bigger parts there in the movie, because, they're getting ready for the annual Z1 Climax tournament, and Tanahashi's character's not in it, but I guess there's some other guy, Saito or whatever, that couldn't make it, and so the booker's like, how about we put this young dude Kondo in there, and it's Kushida, and then they go out there, and then Kondo gets hurt, and so that leaves a spot open for Cockroach Mask to enter Z1.
So while you're going for that, one of my favorite characters in the movie was Machiko.
Yes,
who was the mark.
Yes,
who would not expose the business to the kids, but would tell them the history of everything.
Machiko was us.
Yes, correct, exactly.
Let me just say, I am not Mochiko. I freaking hated Mochiko.
Oh, I loved her. Dude, she was awesome.
She was cute. She was a mark.
Yeah,
I thought Mochiko was like like me and Jeremy were talking yesterday, and Jeremy's like, she's a smart mark, and I was like, no, she's just a mark. She's not smart.
No, you see, she's writing for the newspaper, and she wanted to, essentially she was us. She wanted to get, her own little wrestling blog popping, and use the newspaper to write about Lion Pro Wrestling.
I did like how she, so the whole deal is she's trying to write for the Z1 or whatever, and when they announced that like Cockroach Mask is going to be in it, she's like, oh, that's Omura. That's not Cockroach Mask. That's Omura. That's like us when we talk about these dudes that get sent to like WWE, they get treated like geeks. We're like, no, that's fucking Ricochet. You don't understand.
Right. We're like, that's Brody Lee. That's not Luke Harper.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she knew like all the history on Omura and was like, oh yeah, I gotta do a story on this guy. So kind of like the smart mark in the movie, like she knows all the backstory and who he really is and stuff like that.
If I was gonna criticize something about the movie though, in one aspect, so this movie is very heavily anime and manga influenced. In fact, I think it's even based on one. So a lot of the like acting and stuff is supposed to be portraying that as opposed to like just a serious film, which fit the theme, which was cool. But her kind of character is something you see in anime very often. So like as an actor, she portrayed that well, but it kind of came off a lot more over the top than the rest of the film. Like she almost was like a comedic relief as well. So it was good. It fit the theme. But she was the one thing that was hard for me to kind of take serious in the film, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I loved her.
I did. And it was funny because she was like getting scooped through the child or whatever.
Yes.
She had a drag. She was a big Dragon George fan. She was like trading memorabilia and I don't know. I think she was like a real part of like illuminating how special Cockroach Mask actually was.
Right. And so to kind of back
in his previous persona.
Right. And so to kind of back up a little bit. So he finds out his dad's a heel wrestler and he goes to school the next day and the kids are asking, what does your dad, did you find out what your dad does? And he says pro wrestler, and they're like, well, who is he? And he gets kind of forced into saying Dragon George because he's embarrassed. He doesn't want.
He didn't come out and say it right away. Like he didn't say anything, and then the little girl who he liked, she was like, "Oh my God, is it Dragon George?" And all the kids start chanting, and then he's like, and he doesn't say anything, and then he was actually, you know what? That little kid was a worker because he worked all those kids into thinking that his dad,
the young worker, he didn't even know
it. They think Dragon George is his dad. He goes along with it, and they ask for an autograph. So then that's when he goes into the shop and where Michiko's at, and they're like watching the matches or whatever. And he steals the Dragon George autograph, and then she catches him, and then they make the exchange. She finds out his dad's Cockroach Mask, and they make the exchange of autographs, and then he gives the Dragon George autograph to the girl he likes, and then everybody thinks that Dragon George is his dad.
Who did you say that little girl looked like, Rich? You said it was a Joshi wrestler?
Yes. She has her haircut in a fashion where she looks like a 10 or 9-year-old version of Arisa Hoshiki. It's hilarious.
That's true.
And
that's absolutely true.
And the little boy's name is Shota, kind of like Shota Aminu, which is funny.
Yeah. They trade the autograph and going on from there. Oh yeah, during that scene we had the Naito and Hiromu cameo when they're
when Shota is like he's trying to find a way to get the Dragon George like autograph, and he sees it hanging on a wall where all these wrestling fans are congregated. So he runs in and grabs it, and he's gonna steal the shit. And he runs out with it, and the girl Mochiko, she sees him, she chases after him, and then right at that moment, like Hiromu and Naito are walking in character, like they're in street clothes, but they're clearly like Naito and Hiromu.
Yeah.
And when they almost knock them over, like Naito's like, he's like, calm down. He's
like,
tranquilo.
That was funny. I popped.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of great things like that were just like very insidery for like diehard like fan service for New Japan fans that kind of like just might not have gotten completely over with like regular audiences, but like served us who like are faithful watchers, which I loved that aspect of it too.
Yeah.
And then we started seeing action from the Z1 tournament, and Cockroach Mask faced off against Joel Hardy.
Yeah,
Joel Hardy.
Better known as Trent Beretta.
That was great.
Yeah, I love that. And it was just funny because he kind of looked like one of the like Young Bucks, but kind of mixed with the Hardy Boys, and he just like he fits this like weird archetype of like those two like tag teams mixed into one guy.
Yeah. And that match was actually a pretty good match also.
Yeah, he tried the old Brian Kendrick against Kota Ibushi. He tried to tie him up to the outside and get him counted out.
Yes. So throughout the match, Cockroach Mask was cheating. And, obviously Shota didn't understand why. And Cockroach Mask ends up winning this match. He beats Joel Hardy and advances in Z1.
Yeah, and then what was interesting after this was like the son, the whole movie, so he discovers his dad's like a heel wrestler. He's embarrassed about it. He gets roped into lying about who his dad actually is and everything like that. But he's internally struggling because he loves his dad. His dad is like the greatest guy he knows, but he's also a wrestler who does bad things, and he's
a heel.
He's a heel, and he's embarrassed about it. You know what I mean? Like really, really embarrassed. And like he tries to talk to his dad after the match, and he's upset. And his dad's like, I won. I'm gonna be champion. He's like, I don't want you to be champion.
Yeah.
He's like, you should think about maybe quitting wrestling. I just want a regular dad. And I was like.
He was like, if you can't be like Dragon George, then I just want you to be a normal dad.
Right.
And it's sad because the thing is he doesn't know that his dad was like Dragon George, but
right.
he laid it all out on the line, and God had other plans for him.
Yeah. Machiko had another quote that kind of reminded me of that one. It was like, it's not about winning or losing.
Yes.
Like, and then she like snapped on somebody. I forgot what it was.
Yo, she beat up the whole staff at her.
Yes.
She put her, the one homie who was like her boy, who was like the guy that was helping her the whole movie, who was her friend. She put him in an armbar out of nowhere.
Yeah. She lost it.
She lost her shit because she had too much fighting spirit.
And then, as Z1 is going on, Cockroach Match is advancing, and we see some doctor visits. And I felt like this is kind of like what Tanahashi's real doctor visits are like. Like he's getting the knee checked.
Hey man, you know what I thought of?
What?
Like I thought of Karate Kid. Like when he was laying on the table, I thought the doctor was gonna go like. And then, had to rub his knees. For those of you guys that don't know what I did, this is an audio medium. The famous scene when Miss Miyagi started rubbing his hands together and just started doctoring Daniel. That's kind of what I felt like.
It's funny that this scene left such impressions on all of us because we all had different impressions. My impression's a little different. When I watched the scene, it reminded me of Any Given Sunday when Lawrence Taylor's getting shot up with the Novocaine. And he tells me, he's like, listen, you're still injured. It just takes the pain away.
Yeah.
And he's like Tanahashi's like, I know.
Yes, I'm telling you, man. This is like Tanahashi's real life appointments every time. It's like,
yes,
Tana, you're still hurt. Like, you should, maybe stop this wrestling thing. And he's like, nah.
Now,
gotta keep going.
Another thing I really loved, I want to touch on was earlier in the movie when Tanahashi was on his way to like go to his son's like little show and tell thing, and he was running late. He's like running past all these people, and there's this little old lady who needs help, and he's trying. He knows he needs to be where his son is, but he turns around and he gives this like little old woman a piggyback ride because he's just like the nicest guy in the world outside of the ring, and I love that. And I was like, man, that's what Tanahashi really is.
Yeah. And then, kind of back to Shota's story, there's this little, snot-nosed kid in his class that's, little popular kid, and he's mad that, Shota's been getting all his attention, and he's like, I don't think, his dad's Dragon George. Like, we need to expose this man.
Hater.
He sends the little girl Ringo to go to Shota's mom's, like, hairdresser shop, acting like she's going to get a haircut, and she's like, what's it like, living with Dragon George, or whatever she said. And
her mom like froze up, and she knew right then. She's like, "Oh, he been working me."
Yep.
And I just want to say this. Those are some little badass kids, but they were all so cute that like I didn't really care. They're just all little like angel babies. Like they picked the right children. Like that little kid Shota, he was a good like child actor.
Good.
Like,
yeah, he was good.
Every time he said something that was like hurtful to like Tanahashi, like it really got to me. I was like, this is a good movie because it's pretty emotional. Like
yeah.
Even like my girlfriend was watching it. She's like, you know what? This actually is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he told Tanahashi, "I hate you, man," I felt that.
Yeah,
that was hurtful. Like I'm not a dad, but I just can't imagine like, yo, like I fathered you, I brought you into this world, and then they turn around and be like, "I hate you," and you're like, I've been fucking up all this time. It sucks.
So then he gets kind of exposed there. Well, so Ringo kind of knows and goes off and tells the other kid that his mom kind of froze up on that question. And then we get to the part where Tanahashi, he's really contemplating wanting to be a babyface, and so he goes to the doctor again, asking. He's like, "I'm here to check my knee." He's like, "Why?" He's like, "I want to do the fly high."
Fly high.
Keep in mind, this is the move that put him out of the babyface game 10 years ago.
Yep.
Right.
And also, like, his wife, like, they had a really poignant moment where, like, the wife and him are talking, and she's like, you said you were going to be a heel for a couple years. Now it's been a decade. Yep. He's like, it's only been 9 years. And she's like, same thing.
Yeah. And so then we go to his next Z1 match where he's facing off against Makabe's character. What was it, like Sweet Gorilla or something?
Sweet Gorilla Muragiyama.
Yeah.
Murakama, something like that.
And so they're following the script. The match is going how it's supposed to go. Cockroach Mask is cheating. Well, actually, he's not cheating.
Well. Before that, Bottle Cap Mask had put his special bug spray in the back of his aerosol spray in the back of his pants. He's like, I put it where I always put it. And right before he walks out, he takes it out of his pants and he drops it on the gym floor and walks out. And you're like, oh, this man not gonna follow the script, right?
Yeah,
right.
So the whole match, he's not cheating, and even the commentators are like, something's very odd with Cockroach Mask. He's not cheating. He's not doing his dastardly things he normally does. And then we get to the spot where like Blue Bottle Mask jumps in and he's holding Sweet Gorilla and waiting for the double team. And Cockroach Mask is not doing it, and the whole crowd is like, what's going on? Then he slowly pulls the mask off, that Tiger Mask 2 moment, pulls the mask off, crowd pops, they're going crazy.
And like the commentating team does such a good job. They're like, all this time we thought Amura was retired. He's secretly been Cockroach Mask the whole time.
For 10 years.
For 10 years.
Oh man! And so he's making this big comeback against Sweet Gorilla. He hits the roach trap sling blade.
Yes.
Which apparently, like earlier in the movie, they're like totally illegal, and then later in the movie, they're like totally legal.
Then he goes up. He goes on the top rope. He's looking for the fly high, but he hesitates. He just waits a little bit too long, and Sweet Gorilla was able to come back, hit that Spider German. Hit the King Kong knee drop. 1, 2, 3. Cockroach Mask out of the tournament.
Also, keep in mind at this moment when he unmasks, his son is in the audience and he's watching this. And when he sees him take off the mask, he goes, "Daddy." And the little girl looks over and she's like, "Oh, fuck no."
Yeah. She's like, "He done lied to me."
Yes.
And they both rush off into like the corridor, and she's like, "Why did you lie to me? Why?" And he doesn't say anything. She's like, "I hate you."
Yep.
And then like she leaves, and like from that point, like he stops going to school because he's embarrassed, because everyone figures out that like that's actually his dad is Cockroach Mask. And when he tells his mom, he was like, and his dad gets fired. Obviously, his dad gets fired. He didn't follow the script. He ruined his tag team. He took his mask off. He can't go back to being a bad guy now. Like he ruined the plans. And so, like, he exposed the business. So like, he tells his mom, he's all sad, and he was like, I told Dad I hated him, and today someone else told me they hated me, and that felt so bad. Is that how he's been feeling all this time? And I was like, this movie.
Yeah, and then Michiko, she was writing all these stories, and she's gonna do this big cover story on Cockroach Mask, but the whole deal was he had to win the tournament. So her boss was like, "Yeah, I'm canceling the story, your cover page or whatever." And that's when she kind of flips out and puts Buddy in the arm bar and loses the story.
This is basically the Jake Roberts King of the Ring tournament run in 1996 at this point.
Then Dragon George ends up winning the Z1 tournament. He beats Sweet Gorilla, and he has his the post-match press conference, and they're like, you've beaten everybody. You're the champion. You won a Z1 for the third year in a row. Like, there's nobody left for you to challenge. Like, who would you want to face next? And he's like, well, there is an old wrestler. He just revealed himself. He's like, I want to face Takashi Omura, only if he can be the Omura from 10 years ago.
Yep.
I don't want him to come in and be weak.
Yep.
And keep in mind, earlier in the movie, Cockroach Mask had wrestled Dragon George and got his ass whooped.
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
Ate that Dragon Maker.
Yeah, the Dragon Maker, all of it.
So Dragon George kind of calls him out, and then he gets the call. The promoter calls Omura, and he's kind of cuts scenes there, but he eventually turns down the call, and he wants to be a normal dad, and he tells Shota, hey, I'm going to be a normal dad now. And
but it's sad the way he says it. He's like, I'm going to be a normal dad now. Aren't you happy?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, fuck. And also, like, there's a point earlier, too, where, like, he asks his mom, he's like, why can't he stop wrestling? And she's like, it's his passion. And then she goes, well, maybe it's the only thing he can do.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is better than the wrestler. This is real.
Yes. And then Michiko runs into him, and, he's like, your dad's going to face, Dragon George. This is awesome. And he's like, no, he's not. He said he's not going to do it. She's like, no, he didn't. Like, and like,
yeah, I believe you.
She's like, he has to.
Yes, and then like she like gives him like her story that she was working on to give to Tanahashi, and she's like, and then they go to this restaurant, and she's like, yeah, he made a promise 10 years ago, and I believe in him. He said he would come back and be stronger and continue to fight. I know he's gonna hold on to that promise. Your dad is not a liar.
Yeah, and like she takes him to I don't know, some restaurant that it looks like one of those like
pizza
wrestler. Well, it looks like one of those wrestler bars that you hear about in Japan. Because there's
Yano's restaurant.
Yeah, it looked like one of Yano's restaurants. There's just like wrestling memorabilia everywhere and like pictures of the wrestlers, and they're playing wrestling, and they're playing the Z1 match between his father and Kojima. And when he watches his dad go to the top, he's like, "Wow, he actually was strong, wasn't he?" Because he didn't know, he wasn't around back then, so he didn't know that his dad was a G. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And so then his dad finds the story that Michiko writes, and decides. Go ahead.
I wasn't gonna say anything,
I didn't say anything. No.
But to be honest, his father didn't find it. Shota gave it to him.
Right. Well, he set it up like in this room with like a sign down or whatever.
Yeah. He turns his self around. He decides, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna make this right. Because he realized he fucked up and ruined his dad's life. So he sets it up so his dad's going to find the article, but he goes to school and he tells all the little kids, he's like, you know what?
He cuts the promo on all the kids.
Yes,
he cuts the promo on the kids, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, because they written like Cockroach Kid on his desk. He erased it, jumped on the desk. He's like, yes, Cockroach Mask is my dad, and he's going to beat Dragon George for the belt. He's going to be the champion. Y'all gonna see.
They all boom. They throw stuff at him. And,
yeah, they boo
he's
that.
Like, my dad is not weak. He is strong. Y'all gonna see. And they start throwing shit at him.
But he's sitting there just like taking it like.
He's sitting there taking it because he's a heel. He loves that they're jeering
he's a heel
him.
child.
Yes.
They're giving him all the heat in the world, and he loves it. He's like, I thrive on your hate.
And then we see, Tanahashi talks to the promoter, and I guess they signed the contract, signed the big match for the, Omura versus Dragon George. But then he goes to his old partner.
Keep in mind, it's Omura versus Dragon George, not Cockroach Mask versus Dragon George.
Yeah,
but he goes to his old buddy, his old tag partner for last decade, Blue Bottle Mask, and it's like, I'm gonna need your help for this match.
I can't be Omura.
So yeah, then we go
I'm
to
old.
yes, and then they go to the. I think he goes to the doctor, and the doctor's like, I think wasn't that before? The doctor's like, you have like one last. You can only do.
Yeah,
it
he's
one.
like, you can do one high fly.
That's it.
That's it. That's all you got.
You got to use one.
And so yeah, they go to the match, and Shota goes there with all his friends. His friends they kind of forgive him, and they all go to the match together. And
keep in mind, it's his actual friends, not the badass kids that were like setting him up. Those are different kids,
right? It's his real homeboys,
his real homies.
Yeah.
And then he ended up sitting next to the girl that he likes, and they ended up watching the match together.
And she forgives him.
Yeah, and so Tanahashi comes out, and we're all expecting him. He's supposed to come out as Omura, his old self, his big dream match, but he comes out as Cockroach Mask, and the commentators.
But what's really great about it is he doesn't just come out as Cockroach Mask. The Omura music hits, and like, oh, it's that music we haven't heard in 10 years.
Yep.
And then right when he walks out, the whole thing changes, and they're like, wait, what is that? Cockroach Mask music.
Yes. And it's like, but he had the extensions though from Omura with the Cockroach Mask on, and then the commentator's like, "It's Super Cockroach Mask."
Yeah,
the man leveled up.
He's on a different level now.
So yeah, then they go and have a match, and like we talked about earlier, yeah, this was like great match. Yes,
easily,
excellent.
Great matchup. Back and forth, coming back. You had Blue Bottle Mask.
I thought he was gonna win.
Right. Hit the roach spray on him.
Yep.
They hit. Yeah, he's cheating, and they're doing everything. Like, it's really great. And then at one point, like, he goes up, and they're like, "Oh my god, he's gonna hit the fly high."
Yes.
And he fucking lands that shit. 1, 2. 2
Bro.
3/4
Kick out, bro.
When he did that, like, I looked away from the screen, like, fuck, like, I thought he was gonna win.
So did I. I'm like, here we go. Tanahashi gonna beat Okada.
Bro, he can't beat Okada even in the movies.
I was so hyped, and he kicked out. I was like,
he kicked out, and I was like, I knew Okada had this shit.
But then he came back again, went back up. He knocked Okada back down. He goes up top. And
Okada stands up, and I was like, oh, he's going to hit with a standing fly high.
Yes.
Drop kick.
Yes. Dragon George caught this man midair. Boom. Hit him with the Dragon Maker. 1, 2, 3. Cockroach Mask fails to win the championship. He uses his last fly high. Dragon George continues to reign as the top star in Lion Pro Wrestling.
Forever and ever.
Now, here's the really cool part. The match ends, everything, and then they do a flashback to Shota and his mom. And his mom's like, she's the only person in the whole movie that, like, aside from the reporter chick who, like, really smartens him up. And she's like, today when you go watch him, you need to boo him or jeer him. She's like, why? He was like, why would I boo him? She's like, because he's a bad guy. That's how you cheer him. And he was like, oh, what? So then they go back to the end of the match, and like, Cockroach Mask is walking out, and he's like, "Fuck you, Cockroach Mask."
Well, no. First, what happened? Well, Cockroach Mask was walking out, but then like Omura, like the post-match promo was like, you were strong today, and Cockroach Mask was like, nah, what do you say? And like went back in the ring, and like, it was acting like a heel.
And rushed the ring and said, "Fuck this!" Like, don't try to call me old. Nothing. Let's do it. Fuck you.
Yeah, he's like,
through the security.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna fight again, and that's when Shota was like, "Boo, Cockroach Mask!"
And all the other little kids, all his friends, are like, oh, "What is he doing?" And then he was
I'll
like,
tell you what he was doing. He was building another match.
One of the things I loved about the entire movie was like how the little girl's dad was always with them, and he's always talking shit about Cockroach Mask the whole film.
Bro, his dad's like the guy. It's like the fan that's not smart enough. Like, well, actually, like this Cockroach Mask sucks.
Bro, basically, like that girl's dad is my dad. My dad hates heels and loves faces.
Yes,
and like. He was like, man, Cockroach Mask is a scumbag.
he's nowhere near Dragon George's level.
He's not on the level with these guys. He's weak.
Yeah.
Man, when they told that kid his dad was weak, I felt so bad for him, man.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to hear nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I maintain that, like they did last year, every year, Lion Pro Wrestling needs to make an appearance in New Japan Pro Wrestling every single year.
I'm still waiting for my Dragon George versus Okada match.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe they can make they can make a part 2 of this and then introduce some more people.
Yeah.
There is supposed to be a part 2 because the manga is a 2-part manga from what I understand, and they were talking about how Tanahashi was gonna have to cut his hair again in the future. Keep in mind, Tanahashi, as dreamy as he is, man, his hair looked terrible in that haircut.
Yeah. That was that reminded me of, like, he didn't look so bad in the movie, right? But when he was coming back to wrestle and that process of getting it back long, boy, he was going through it for a couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking rough.
You know, so the end of the movie, basically everything happens. You know, his son's proud of him, and then his son goes to school, and they're supposed to be like they're supposed to showcase on the wall their dream, like what they want their dream to be. And so he draws a picture of his dad as a heel wrestler, and then himself next to his dad in the same getup as also a heel wrestler.
Cockroach Mask Jr.
He's like, I want to be El Hijo del Cockroach Mask.
Yeah, and his friends like, yeah, kind of like merged that scene with that, and like his friends ask him, like, why'd you do that? And he's like, because my dad is a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I love how he was like, my dad's not a bad person, but he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely would love to see a part 2. I enjoy the hell out of this movie. High recommendation from, I would say, all of us if you haven't watched this.
Yeah, and then
about an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah, and his
it's like 2 hours.
Yeah, it's 2 hours. Yeah, and his friends were like, yeah, we don't care if your dad's Cockroach Mask. He was still pretty cool. Like, he was awesome in that match with Dragon George, and the girl forgave him. His friends forgave him. Thought it was cool that Cockroach Mask was his dad, and
it's because he put on a 5-star performance. It's hard to deny greatness.
Right. They had no choice.
You know, with this movie, like, there is a lot that I just really, really, really enjoyed with it. Like, oh yeah, your guy's girl. What was the girl's name again? Mochiko at the end of the movie, like, she was the one who was trying to get freaking Cockroach Mask over. She's crying in the crowd, and she's like, "Thank you, Cockroach Mask."
And she had the cockroach towel.
Yeah.
That was.
The only thing I missed was people weren't asking Cockroach Mask to wipe his sweat on it and then give it back to them.
Because he's a heel.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to point out, we need to give New Japan a break on the officiating, because the officiating in Lion Pro Wrestling was horrible. This man, Cockroach Man, was out here low blow, spraying cockroach spray in the face, hitting dudes with weapons, and Red Shoes was like letting it go.
The worst part was when Blue Bottle Mask got in and grabbed Sweet Bread Murayama, or whatever his name was, and he's holding the dude.
Sweet Gorilla.
Gorilla.
Yeah, he's waiting for Sweet Gorilla to get nailed, and like the referee's just standing there, and I'm like, yo, you gonna DQ these guys? You're just gonna wait till the transaction happens? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and like the one match with like Joel Hardy where he's like taping them to the barricade. The one kid's like, is this even allowed?
Now, here's the thing, Jeremy, is like, I get what you're saying. You know, the officiating was bad. You're absolutely right. But here's the problem. The officials in Lion Pro Wrestling are the same officials in New Japan. It was the same dudes.
The IWGP, I guess, sent them to a different promotion.
Right. I guess the IWGP is over Lion Pro Wrestling as well.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
That's probably the case.
That's the only thing I can surmise from this is like.
It's basically like NXT and WWE. There's the NXT title, and there's the Lions Pro title, and then there's the IWGP title and the WWE title.
Right.
And then like the Universal title is basically the same level as like the Never belt.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, overall, My Dad's a Heel Wrestler, great movie. If you have not seen it, go check it out. It will be up on New Japan World until October, I believe. They have the rights for the English subtitles until then.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was one of the best movies of 2018. Personally, and that's not some cap stuff. Like, it was really, really good. Like, I really, really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, okay, let's do this before we finish this. Favorite moment?
Man,
I think when he hit that last fly high, and I thought he was going to win.
Okay.
I would probably say, man, it was really good overall. Some combo of like when Machiko snapped off and said like wrestling is not about winning or losing, and then she snapped off, and then him unmasking.
Those were all great moments. My favorite moment was the first time that his son's at the wrestling match, and he sees his dad do the cockroach mask pose, and time stands still, and the lights are on the two of them, and they're both staring at each other from the ring and the audience. And he was like, Shota. And he's like, Daddy. And it was like, it was completely like an anime moment. And I was like, oh, this is good storytelling right here.
Yeah.
I love the movie. I love it. Like, and I'm not just saying that. Like, I know it's the New Japan podcast, and like, it's easy for us to be fanboys, something that we like. But like, as a film enthusiast, I really, really, really like the movie a lot.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable like if you are trying to show this to the woman in your life, they would love it. If you're trying to show this to the man in your life, be like, hey, this is why I watched this thing. Like this is like a little piece of it.
Anybody could watch this. That's the great thing about it. This is a film for children. It'd be easy for them to get it. For a wrestling fan, for a family, for adults, grandparents. Like literally, this is a movie for all ages.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is like kind of brilliant. Like, you know, before this, you would have had been like, if you had to be like, what's the best wrestling movie? You probably had to be like The Wrestler, but that movie's kind of dark. Like, this movie's a lot happier than that shit.
Yeah. And it shows a lot of different perspectives of wrestling from a child's point of view, from inside the business, from like someone that's writing about the business, and just the reflection of reality that you see.
That was, you know, that's a great point you make, Rich. I think that was something that like I thought about a lot. Was like, I think a lot of this movie is completely from the viewpoint of a child, because it reminded me of like when I was 8 or 9. I kind of got smartened up and I kind of knew it wasn't real, but I still didn't fully know that it all wasn't real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like even the refs.
Like it took time for me to like gradually grasp the full like reality of everything, and I think that's kind of what this movie was like in a way, like, which is kind of smart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what like the part 2 of this story is. Like,
just great.
Yeah, great movie. Well, that's gonna wrap up our review of My Dad's a Heel Wrestler.
What would you give it? Star rating, 5 stars. You know, out of the 5-star Meltzer scale, what would you guys give it?
I don't know what you mean by 5-star scale, but you know, we work on unlimited. You know,
the established Dave Meltzer 5-star scale that exists and is a thing.
I would probably say this is an easy like 4.5.
That's what I would say. Yeah, 4.5.
That's exactly where I'd go. 4.5 easily.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's our review of My Dad as a Heel Wrestler. Check that out on NJPWworld.com. And now we're going to do the recommended match of the week. So it was Josh's turn last week, and he had us watching Kanemoto versus El Samurai in the Best of the Super Junior Finals. And so both Rich and I watched this match. We'll give our thoughts real quick, and then it'll be Rich's turn to pick the recommended match of the week for us. So yeah, I thought this was a great matchup here with Kanemoto and El Samurai. You know, starting off with a lot of grappling. Samurai's working over Kanemoto's arm, and then you kind of go. Kanemoto was working over the legs, and throughout the match, they're both like targeting moves on the arm and the leg. And there's a point where Kanemoto hits, or Samurai hits like a big like flying headbutt on Kanemoto's arm. Kanemoto was ripping the mask, working over the leg with figure fours and other kind of leg locks there, and just a real kind of great back and forth between these guys. It's this struggle of, you know, both guys trying to execute their game plans on submissions, and then also kind of mixing in some high flying stuff like random like springboard flips and stuff like that. So it's like springboard twisting moonsault thing that Kanemoto did. There was a top rope Poison Rana towards the end of the match. And then it all came down to Samurai getting the big win with the death drop combo. Hit like a death drop reverse suplex and then a lifting death drop to get the win.
Yeah. At first I was like, man, this is kind of slow, and then like halfway through
Right.
it heats up, and you start looking at the outside of the ring. Liger's there, Jericho's there, and the Poison Rana. I was like, holy shit! I was like, this is 1997. I'm just like trying to think. I was like, people must have lost their fucking minds when they saw this.
That man
Yeah.
landed right on his dome.
Yeah. And I thought it was a really good match. I'd probably say like 4.25. And I've seen Kanemoto before on Starrcade 95. I had never seen El Samurai. I was expecting more high flying, but this one was kind of like we're building a match slowly, and then it's going to peak and end at the right time. And this was a match, like the crowd was going out of their fucking minds. Like, insane. So, like, that's like, I would see someone like Okada would be influenced by that match.
Yeah, it was definitely a more of a heavyweight style match than a typical junior match. There was some high flying, but not a lot. Yeah, it's worked more of a heavyweight, kind of a slower pace, and kind of eventually, like you mentioned, building to that big finish.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, where would you've gone? Given it a modern like rating scale after watching this?
Yeah, I'm somewhere in between 4.25 and 4.5.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I actually went ahead and rewatched this myself just because I hadn't seen it in a few years. It's a match that I remember just being great, but then I turned it on, and at first I started watching it and I was like, oh, it's a little slow. Like, I don't remember it being this slow. Like, I remember because like what sticks out in my mind is the big drops, the big strike exchanges and everything, and like the drama.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to like stop it and restart a few times. And as I paid attention to the grappling, I was like, you know what? This grappling is really indicative of like the grappling style of the time, like very like shoot-based, Shudo style. And once I started paying attention to like the small things they're doing, I was like, oh, these dudes are fucking each other up. Like they're doing a lot of nasty like eye rakes and kicks and stuff. And then once they started like moving into the strikes where like they're kicking each other in the head or kicking each other in the legs, I was like, yo, they're fucking laying into this shit like really, really, really hard. And that's when it started to pick up for me. But like the whole story of like Samurai's leg getting just teared up by the strikes and by all the submission holds, and he kept getting out of them, and the crowd just like really buying into that. I was like, okay, now I remember why this match is so great. Yeah. And Samurai having to like overcome all of those submission attempts to continue on in the match. And then like towards the end when Kanemoto like just straight rips his mask off and like he's like his face is exposed, I was like, all right, I get it. I remember why this match is so fucking awesome. and like, yeah, I still love the match. I think it's still really, the thing is like, it's really hard hitting. Like these guys are just super hate filled. Like I think we see more violent matches in New Japan nowadays, but I don't know if we see a lot that are as hate filled. Like everything these guys did was just real nasty towards each other. You know what I mean?
Right. It wasn't like, obviously they were fighting to win, but it was also like they just didn't really like each other at all.
Right, like they're trying to fuck each other up the whole match.
Which I thought, mask off, like disrespect.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it still really holds up. I mean, at the time, like Dave gave this 5 stars, and people still like herald this as one of the best Super Junior finals. I don't know if it's 5 stars by today's standards, but it's pretty high. Like it's still a really really great match.
Yeah. All right, Rich, what do you have for us this week for the recommended match?
So earlier I mentioned that the movie with My Dad Is a Hero Wrestler, the final match was similar to the Okada and Tanahashi match from Fukuoka. So that is what I'm going to go with. The 11th defense, I believe, or when the record-breaking defense for Okada against Tanahashi, 5-star match or 5.5 in the Observer. And this one, I remember loving it at the time. So that is going to be my recommended match. Kazuchika Okada versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. What the fuck is that?
Is that Dontaku?
Dontaku. 2008.
It's Dontaku.
Yep. Dontaku 2018.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a while since I've... Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, I mean, like, you know, it's kind of cheating to just like give away a Tanahashi Okada match. You know what I'm saying? Like every single one of their matches is like 5 stars.
No, I don't miss. You know, ain't no time to be, you know, around with 3 3/4, 3.5. Ain't no time to be messing with that, man. We need this greatness.
Yeah, I haven't watched that match since we watched it, live 2 years ago. So looking forward to checking that out. And I really do liking that match back then, just how good it was, and that the whole story. Yeah, will Tanahashi stop Okada from breaking his record? And it was a good story, great match. So yeah, I'm looking forward to rewatching that.
You recommended the wrong match. You should have recommended the one from from King of Pro Wrestling
when he won. Right?
When Tanahashi won.
Oh my gosh! All right, well,
maybe it was Destruction. I don't know. It was either Destruction or
Destruction.
It was Destruction, yeah.
Or you could have recommended the G1 match, a draw, where Tanahashi clearly whooped
that
man. Yes.
Man, that was our feud of the year that year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they had.
Why don't y'all go watch all three of those matches back to back to back?
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, Rich. Before you go, why don't you give the listeners your plugs and where they can find you online?
Yeah, man. You can follow me at Rich Latta 32 on Twitter. Check me out over on One Nation Radio with James, and we're talking about a lot of stuff, different stuff every week. We're never going to run out of stuff, even if they cease operations. I think I saw some news today, possibly about AEW, but I'm going to look more into the story. You can check out me on YouTube. You just type in Rich Latta, subscribe to the page. You like to see basically some of the music I got going on, beat making videos, stuff like that. And check us out on the Discord for sure.
That's right.
If y'all ever run out of live wrestling, we could always just do fucking world class reviews,
Right.
Go back to the network, watch some world class, watch some mid south.
Yeah.
Some good shit.
Watch some Kenzo Kobashi.
Yes. We'll do the live translation. Rich doing the commentary.
You guys have no idea. Like, Rich will be at work, and we're all working too. And then he's watching all these like interviews with Kenta Kobashi and like Aja Kong and stuff, and he's like, "I'll fuck you up." Takayama, you want to get something? We can run it too.
Yeah. Then was whoever he was gonna fight next was always sitting ringside, and then he would start selling out to him after the match, and something would happen, and they would go face to face. Like when he was wrestling against Shono, the match before that, he called Shono out. Shono was sitting in the audience or doing commentary. One of the things like that. Fast forward, bro, he's dumping Shono on his head like 5-6 times, like in the dome. And it was just amazing.
Yeah, I got mad. Like, you were in the group chat and you're like, "Josh, why you never told me you fucked up Chono like this?" And I was like, "I told you guys about Kenta Kobashi."
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
All right, Rich. Well, thanks for joining us, man, and we'll have you back on here in the future.
Yeah, man. No doubt. Thanks for having me on, and always glad to join.
All right, well, that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode of Keeping It Strong Style. Next week, we'll be back with something. Don't know yet, but we'll have something planned for you.
It's going to be dope, whatever it is.
If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation. Visit socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, I'm at Jeremy L. Donovan. The show is at KI Strong Style. Also follow us at Social Suplex. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we're at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. Also look out for the Social Suplex Discord. You can go to the Social Suplex Twitter and find the link to that. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Make sure you check out all the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. On Sundays, we have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. On Wednesdays, every other Wednesdays, we have the podcast dedicated to independent wrestling. Grown Men Watch This Shit, hosted by Jeremy Tate and Chris Bryan. On Fridays, we have Get in the Ring with Danny and Beast Mike. And on Saturdays, we have All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson Jr., Amy, and Tiffany. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. We'll catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.